Do you still hate me? 4 words, spoken in darkness, between two people who once meant everything to each other. Daniel Hayes never expected his routine business trip to Seattle would trap him in a hotel room with Victoria Blake, the woman who destroyed his career 6 months ago. One bed, one storm raging outside, and 6 months of silence that feels like poison between them. But tonight, she asked the question he's been avoiding, and his answer might change everything. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit like and comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. The automatic doors of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel whispered open, and Daniel Hayes stepped into a world he didn't want to be in. Seattle in November was all rain and gray skies, the kind of weather that made you want to turn around and go home. But home was 2,000 miles away in Chicago, and his daughter Emma was probably already asleep by now, tucked in by his mother, who'd agreed to watch her for the week. He'd called twice on the drive from the airport. Both times, his mom had laughed at him. "She's fine, Danny. Stop worrying." But worrying was what he did. It was his default setting now, had been ever since Sarah died 3 years ago. Single father at 29. Nobody prepared you for that. The lobby smelled like expensive carpet and those fancy candles rich people bought. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings that seemed unnecessarily high. Daniel adjusted his laptop bag on his shoulder and headed toward the reception desk, already rehearsing his check-in speech in his head. He hated these corporate trips, hated the small talk, the forced networking, the whole performance of it all. He was 10 feet from the desk when he saw her. Victoria Blake stood near the concierge counter, her back to him, but he'd recognize that posture anywhere. Straight spine, shoulders back. The kind of confidence that came from running a company worth more than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. Her dark hair was shorter than he remembered, cut just above her shoulders in a style that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Daniel stopped walking. His heart did something stupid in his chest, a hard thump that made his breath catch. 6 months. It had been 6 months since he'd seen her, 6 months since everything fell apart. She turned. Their eyes met across the lobby, and for a second the world did that thing where all the sound drops out. The chatter of other guests, the soft piano music playing from somewhere, the rain hammering against the windows, all of it faded into nothing. Victoria's expression flickered. Surprise, then something else, something he couldn't read. Daniel's hands tightened around his laptop bag strap. She looked good. That was the worst part. She looked exactly the same, put together in that effortless way she had, wearing a gray blazer and black pants that probably cost more than his entire suitcase of clothes. Her makeup was minimal. She'd never needed much. He should say something, or walk over, or literally do anything other than stand here like an idiot. But then she looked away first, just turned back to the concierge like he wasn't even there. Daniel felt that small gesture like a punch. He forced himself to move, walking past her toward the main reception desk, careful not to get too close. His pulse was doing something erratic. Stupid body, stupid heart, stupid everything. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Fairmont Olympic." The receptionist was young, probably mid-20s, with a smile that seemed genuine. "Checking in?" "Yeah, Hayes, Daniel Hayes." She typed something into her computer, then frowned slightly. "I have you down for a king room for 5 nights, checking out Sunday morning." "That's right." More typing. The frown deepened. "Is there a problem?" Daniel asked. "Just one moment, sir." She picked up a phone, turned away slightly, had a hushed conversation with someone. Daniel's stomach started to sink. This was exactly the kind of thing that happened to him. Flight delays, lost reservations, coffee spilled on important documents 5 minutes before presentations. The receptionist hung up, turned back with an apologetic expression that confirmed his fears. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hayes. It appears there's been an overbooking situation due to the conference. We're completely sold out for tonight." "What?" "No. I booked this 2 months ago." "I completely understand your frustration. We're doing everything we can to accommodate all our guests. Let me just check with my manager about alternative arrangements." "Alternative arrangements?" "I need a room. I have meetings starting at 8 tomorrow morning." "Yes, sir. I understand. If you could just give me one moment." "Is there a problem?" Victoria's voice cut through the conversation. Daniel turned. She was standing right there, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something citrus and cedar, the same scent she'd worn when they used to. He shut that thought down hard. Ms. Blake? The receptionist's relief was visible. I was just explaining to Mr. Hayes that we've had an overbooking situation. How is that possible? Victoria's tone was calm but sharp, CEO voice, the one that made people scramble. I had my assistant confirm both our reservations last week. Both. The word hit Daniel like cold water.
You knew I'd be here?
The question came out before he could stop it. Victoria glanced at him. Her expression gave away nothing. The conference sent out an attendee list. Right. Miss Blake, Mr. Hayes, the receptionist said, clearly uncomfortable with whatever tension was crackling between them. I've just been informed by my manager that we do have one room available. It's a suite, actually, king bed, but it's the only option we have for tonight. We're working on securing rooms at a partner hotel for tomorrow, but with the storm, most places are fully booked. A suite works fine, Victoria said. One room, Daniel said at the same time. You said one room. Yes, sir. For both of us? The receptionist's expression shifted from apologetic to uncomfortable. Well, that would be up to you both to decide. We can certainly arrange for one of you to stay at another hotel, but the nearest availability I'm seeing is about 40 minutes away, and with the weather, I'll take the suite, Victoria said. I booked first, Tiao, Daniel shot back. He wasn't even sure why he said it. Petty, childish, but something about her assumption that she'd just get what she wanted made his jaw clench. Victoria turned to look at him fully for the first time. Are you serious right now? I have meetings tomorrow, early meetings. So do I. Then I guess we have a problem. Apparently we have several. The receptionist cleared her throat softly. If I might suggest, the suite has a separate sitting area with a sofa. It's quite spacious. And again, with the storm, finding alternative accommodation tonight would be fine. Victoria pulled out her credit card, placed it on the counter. We'll share it. Excuse me? Daniel stared at her. You heard me. We're both adults. We can manage one night in the same room without killing each other. She said it without looking at him, addressing the receptionist instead. Put it under my card. I can pay for my own room. It's not your room, it's mine. You're just also staying in it. That's not how this works. Do you have a better solution? Daniel didn't. He hated that she was right, hated the smug certainty in her voice, hated that after 6 months of nothing, their first conversation was about sharing a hotel room like some kind of cosmic joke. Whatever, he muttered. Victoria's mouth tightened. Professional as always, Daniel. Don't. Don't what? Don't act like you know anything about my professionalism. Something flashed in her eyes. Anger, maybe, or hurt. It was gone too fast to tell. The receptionist processed the card in record time, probably desperate to end whatever this was. You're all set. Suite 1847, 18th floor. Elevators are just past the lobby to your left. Continental breakfast is served from 6 to 10 in the terrace room. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, Victoria said. Daniel grabbed his keycard without a word. They walked toward the elevators in silence. Not together exactly, but parallel. Two people who used to move in sync now carefully maintaining distance. The elevator doors opened. Empty. They stepped in. Victoria pressed 18. The doors slid closed. Enclosed space. Mirrors on 3 walls. Soft instrumental music playing from hidden speakers. Daniel stared at the numbers above the door, watching them climb. 4, 5, 6. You cut your hair, he said. The words just came out. Victoria's reflection in the mirrored wall showed surprise. What? Your hair. It's shorter. That's what you want to talk about? My hair? I'm not trying to talk about anything. Then why did you say it? Forget it. 7, 8, 9. I cut it in August, she said quietly. Needed a change. 10, 11, 12. Looks good. Victoria didn't respond. The elevator hummed upward. 13, 14, 15. How's Emma? She asked. Daniel's chest tightened. Don't Don't what? Ask about your daughter? You don't get to do that. Do what, Daniel? Pretend I care about a little girl I spent 2 years getting to know? Just because you decided I'm the enemy doesn't mean I stopped. You cost me everything. His voice came out harder than he intended. You don't get to ask about my kid like we're old friends catching up. I didn't cost you anything. You decided. The elevator chimed. 18th floor. The doors opened and Victoria walked out without finishing her sentence. Daniel followed, keeping several feet between them. She moved down the hallway like she owned it. Probably felt like she did. Blake Industries owned half the buildings in downtown Seattle. Suite 1847 was at the end of the hall. Victoria swiped her keycard. The lock clicked. She pushed the door open and walked in, flipping on lights. Daniel stepped in behind her and stopped. The receptionist hadn't been lying. The suite was huge. Living area with a full couch and armchairs. Desk by the window, flat-screen TV mounted on the wall. And through the open doorway to the right, a bedroom with a king-sized bed that suddenly seemed way too small. One bed, 6 months of anger and silence. This was going to be a disaster. Victoria was already pulling her suitcase toward the closet. I'll take the left side of the bed. You can have the bathroom first in the morning since you said you have early meetings. I'll sleep on the couch. Don't be ridiculous. That couch is barely 6 feet long and you're what, 6'2"? 6'1". Either way, you won't fit. We can both be adults about this. Adults? Daniel repeated. Right. Like adults who go 6 months without speaking. Victoria turned to face him. You want to do this now? Do what? Have it out. The fight you've clearly been rehearsing in your head for half a year. I'm not fighting with you. Could have fooled me. I'm just saying we're not friends, Victoria. We don't need to pretend. I never said we were friends. Good. So we agree on something. She stared at him for a long moment, and he couldn't read her expression at all. That was new. He used to be able to read her perfectly. Used to know exactly what she was thinking just by the way she tilted her head or the slight change in her breathing. Now she was a stranger in a familiar face. I'm going to take a shower, she said finally. There are extra pillows in the closet if you need them. She grabbed something from her suitcase and disappeared into the bathroom. The door closed with a soft click, followed by the sound of the lock turning. Daniel stood in the middle of the suite and tried to remember how to breathe normally. This was fine. Everything was fine. He'd survived worse. Single fatherhood, grief, the complete implosion of his career 6 months ago. He could survive one night in a hotel room with his ex-best friend. Ex-something. They'd never put a label on it. That was part of the problem. He moved to the window, looking out at Seattle's skyline. Rain streaked down the glass in diagonal lines. The Space Needle was barely visible through the weather, lit up against the dark sky. Storm clouds hung low and heavy. His phone buzzed. A text from his mom. Emma's asleep. She made me read Goodnight Moon 4 times. Stop worrying. He smiled despite everything, typed back, Thanks, Mom. Tell her I love her when she wakes up. The shower turned on in the bathroom. Daniel tried not to think about it, about her, about the fact that they were going to sleep in the same bed tonight for the first time in 6 months, and the last time they'd shared a bed, things had been so different. He pulled out his laptop, sat down at the desk, tried to focus on tomorrow's presentation, numbers and projections and market analysis, safe things, concrete things. But his mind kept wandering. 6 months ago, everything had been good, better than good. He'd been working as a senior analyst at Morrison & Associates, one of the top consulting firms in Chicago. Victoria had been overseeing the expansion of Blake Industries into the Midwest market. They'd met at a networking event, started talking about data trends and market predictions, and somehow 3 hours had passed without either of them noticing. She'd been so easy to talk to, sharp and funny and completely unpretentious despite being worth more money than he could comprehend. They'd started meeting for coffee, then lunch, then dinner, then sleepovers at his apartment where Emma would wake them up at 6 a.m. demanding pancakes, and Victoria would stumble into his kitchen in one of his old t-shirts and somehow make breakfast without burning down the place, which was impressive because she'd been the first to admit she couldn't cook. Everyone thought they were dating, his mom, his coworkers. Emma definitely thought Victoria was his girlfriend, had asked him once with that blunt 6-year-old honesty when Victoria was going to move in with them. But they'd never defined it. Never had that conversation. Daniel told himself it was because things were good and he didn't want to mess it up. Told himself Victoria probably wasn't interested in anything serious anyway, not with a single dad and all the complications that came with that. The truth was he'd been scared. Scared of wanting something that seemed too good to be real. Then came the Morrison deal. He'd spent 3 months putting together a proposal for a major account, a tech startup looking to expand nationally. It was the biggest project of his career, the thing that would make him more than just another analyst. He'd worked nights and weekends, had barely slept, had Victoria proofread his drafts and talk through his strategy. The presentation was supposed to happen on a Tuesday morning. Daniel had everything ready, practiced his pitch until he could do it in his sleep. Monday night, he got a call from his boss. The client had seen a revised version of his proposal, a version he'd never written. Numbers changed, strategy altered, and it had Victoria's digital signature on it as a consultant. The client loved it, wanted to move forward immediately. But it wasn't his work. Not entirely. And when he tried to explain that, tried to ask what happened, his boss cut him off. Hayes, I don't care about internal drama. The client is happy. We're moving forward with Blake's version. You'll assist, but she's taking lead on implementation. He'd called Victoria 17 times that night. She didn't answer. Finally, she'd texted, "Can't talk now. In meetings all day tomorrow. We'll discuss after." But there was no after. The client signed with Morrison and Associates using the modified proposal. Daniel got credited as support staff. Victoria got the consulting fee and the recognition. And he'd never heard her explanation. 2 weeks later, he'd quit Morrison and Associates, took a position at a smaller firm with less prestige and worse pay, but at least it was honest work. At least nobody there would steal his ideas and call it collaboration. He'd blocked Victoria's number, deleted her from his contacts, removed her from every social media platform he had. Emma had asked about her for weeks. When is Victoria coming over? Did I do something wrong? Doesn't she like us anymore? That had been the worst part. Trying to explain to a 6-year-old that sometimes adults have fights that can't be fixed. Watching his daughter's confusion turn to sadness, turn to acceptance, as weeks turned into months, and Victoria never came back. The bathroom door opened. Daniel looked up from his laptop. Victoria stood in the doorway wearing sleep shorts and an oversized Northwestern t-shirt, her hair damp and starting to curl at the ends. No makeup. Bare feet. She looked younger like this. Less like a CEO and more like the woman who used to fall asleep on his couch watching bad reality TV. "Bathroom's free," she said. "Thanks." He grabbed his toiletry bag and a change of clothes, moved past her without making eye contact. The bathroom still smelled like her shampoo, something floral he didn't want to identify. He showered quickly, brushed his teeth, changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt. When he came out, Victoria was already in bed, lying on the left side like she'd promised, scrolling through her phone. Daniel turned off the main lights, leaving just the bedside lamp on her side lit. He climbed into bed, staying as far to the right edge as possible. The mattress dipped slightly under his weight. He could feel the warmth of her body from here, could hear her breathing. This was insane. "You can turn off your light," he said. "I'm good. I'm still reading." "Okay." Silence. Outside, thunder rumbled. The storm was getting worse. Daniel closed his eyes, tried to will himself to sleep, tried to pretend this was normal, just another night in another hotel on another business trip. Nothing significant about the person lying 3 feet away from him. "Daniel?" Her voice was soft, almost uncertain. He kept his eyes closed. "What?" Pause. He could feel her hesitation across the space between them. "Never mind." More silence. Then, quieter, almost a whisper. "Do you still hate me?" Daniel's eyes opened. He stared at the ceiling, at the shadows cast by the lamp, at anything except her. The question sat there in the darkness between them, heavy and inevitable. Did he hate her? 6 months of silence said yes. 6 months of deleted messages and blocked numbers and refusing to say her name out loud. 6 months of Emma asking about her and him changing the subject. But lying here in this bed, with the storm raging outside and her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," he said finally. It was the most honest thing he'd said to her in 6 months. Victoria didn't respond, just turned off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. But Daniel could still feel her there, could hear her breathing change, becoming slightly uneven, like maybe she was crying or trying not to. He turned onto his side, facing away from her, and tried to ignore the ache in his chest. Outside, lightning flashed. Thunder followed seconds later, close enough to rattle the windows. Neither of them slept. The darkness pressed in around them, thick and suffocating. Daniel could hear every small sound, the whisper of sheets when Victoria shifted, the catch in her breathing that told him she definitely wasn't asleep, the relentless drumming of rain against the window. His question hung unanswered in the space between them. "Do you still hate me?" And his response, pathetic and honest. "I don't know." Minutes crawled by. Maybe hours. Time felt strange in the dark. "That's not really an answer," Victoria said finally. Daniel kept staring at the ceiling, tracking the occasional flash of lightning through the curtains. "It's the only one I have. After 6 months, that's all you can say?" "What do you want me to say?" "The truth would be nice." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The truth, right, because you're so good at that." The sheets rustled. He could feel her turn toward him even though he couldn't see her in the dark. "What's that supposed to mean?" You know exactly what it means." "No, Daniel, I really don't. Why don't you spell it out for me?" He sat up, suddenly too restless to lie still. The movement was sharp, frustrated. "You went behind my back, changed my entire proposal, put your name on my work, and you want to talk about truth? Is that what you think happened?" Her voice rose slightly. Not quite yelling, but close. "That's what did happen. I got the call from Morrison. They told me everything." "They told you their version." "There's another version?" He turned to look at where he thought she was in the darkness. Could barely make out her silhouette. "Please, enlighten me." Victoria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, tighter, like she was forcing herself to stay calm. "Your proposal had a critical error in the financial projections. The whole third quarter analysis was based on data from 2019 instead of 2020. If that had gone to the client, it would have been a disaster." Daniel froze. "What?" "The spreadsheet you sent me to review. The one you asked me to look over Friday night before your Monday presentation. Remember that?" He did remember. They'd been at his apartment. Emma was asleep. Victoria had been sitting at his kitchen table with her laptop, going through his numbers while he made them both coffee. "I checked those numbers 100 times, he said. "You checked them, but the source data was wrong. I don't know if it was a version control issue or what, but somewhere in your process, an old file got mixed in. The revenue projections were off by almost 30%. "That's impossible. Daniel, I have a degree in economics, and I've spent the last 5 years analyzing market trends for a living. I know bad data when I see it." His mind was racing, trying to piece together what she was saying. "If there was an error, why didn't you just tell me?" "I tried." Her voice cracked slightly. "I called you Saturday morning, you didn't answer. I called again Saturday afternoon. Voicemail. I texted you that it was urgent. You said you were busy with Emma and you'd call me back." The memory surfaced, fuzzy and uncomfortable. Saturday. He'd taken Emma to the aquarium, had his phone on silent because she hated when he was distracted during their time together. He'd seen Victoria's calls later, but he'd been tired and figured whatever she needed could wait until Sunday. "You never called back," Victoria continued. "Sunday morning I tried again. Your phone went straight to voicemail. I thought maybe it died or something. I drove to your apartment. You weren't there. We were at my mom's. I told you that on Friday. You said maybe you'd go to your mom's." "Not definitely. And you didn't answer any of my messages all weekend, so how was I supposed to know?" Daniel's throat felt tight. "So what, you just took over my project?" "No, I fixed a mistake that would have cost you everything." The presentation was Monday morning. By Sunday night, I still hadn't heard from you. I had 2 choices. Let you walk into that meeting with bad data and tank your career, or fix it myself and deal with the consequences later. "You could have—" "What? What could I have done, Daniel? Tell me." "Because I spent the entire weekend trying to reach you, and you were just gone." He didn't have an answer for that. The silence stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. "I submitted the corrected version Sunday night. Victoria said quietly. Put both our names on it. Sent you an email explaining everything. You never read it. I never got... He stopped. Thought about it. When did you send it? Sunday, around 11 p.m. His email, the one he barely checked on weekends because it was all spam and company newsletters. He'd seen a message from Victoria Monday morning, right before the meeting. Hadn't opened it. Had assumed it was just more of her trying to justify whatever she'd done. I was trying to help you, she said. Her voice was smaller now, tired. I know how much that project meant to you. I knew what it could do for your career. I wasn't trying to steal anything. I was trying to save it. Lightning flashed, bright enough to illuminate her face for a split second. She was sitting up too now, hugging her knees to her chest. Her eyes were wet. Your boss called me Monday afternoon, she continued. Asked if I wanted to take the lead on implementation since I'd improved the proposal so much. I said no. Told him it was your project and you should lead it. He said the client specifically requested me. You could have said no to the client. I did, 3 times. But Morrison told me if I didn't take it, they'd give it to Henderson, and you'd be lucky to even stay on as support. So I took it, and I tried to include you in every meeting, every decision, every... I don't need your charity. It wasn't charity. It was a partnership, like we'd always been. Until you decided you knew better than me. I didn't decide anything. I was trying to fix a mistake before it destroyed something you'd worked 3 months to build. Daniel stood up, suddenly needing space. He walked to the window, pressed his forehead against the cold glass. The city was a blur of lights through the rain. You should have tried harder to reach me, he said. And you should have answered your phone. I was with my daughter. I know, I get it. Single dad, quality time, I understand that. But you asked me to review your work. You gave me access to all your files. You trusted me with something important. And when I found a problem, I did everything I could to tell you. Everything, Daniel, you weren't there. He wanted to argue, wanted to find a hole in her logic, some proof that she was lying or twisting the truth. But the pieces were fitting together in a way that made his stomach turn. Morrison told me you changed everything, he said quietly, made it sound like you'd rewritten the whole thing. I changed one spreadsheet, updated the source data. The rest was all you. Every word of that presentation, every strategy, every insight, that was your work. I just made sure the numbers didn't tank it. Why didn't you tell me this? After, Daniel, you quit Morrison 2 weeks later, blocked my number, deleted me from everything. How exactly was I supposed to tell you anything? He turned to face her, even though he could barely see her in the darkness. You could have shown up at my apartment, sent a letter, something. I did show up twice. You wouldn't answer the door. That stopped him. When? First time was about a week after you quit. Emma answered the intercom. She was so excited to hear my voice. Started telling me about her dance recital and asking when I was coming over. Then you grabbed the speaker from her and hung up on me. The memory hit him like a physical blow. He remembered that. Remembered the panic when he'd heard Emma talking to someone. The cold fury when he'd realized it was Victoria. He told Emma that Victoria was busy and couldn't visit anymore. Had ignored his daughter's tears and his own guilt. The second time, Victoria continued, you answered. Told me if I didn't leave, you'd call the police. That I wasn't welcome around you or your daughter. That I'd done enough damage. He had said that. He'd been so angry, so certain she'd betrayed him. The words had felt righteous in the moment. Now they just felt cruel. I tried, Daniel, she whispered. For weeks I tried. But you'd already made up your mind about me. About what I'd done. And nothing I could say was going to change that. Thunder cracked outside, close and violent. The lights flickered, but held. So yeah, Victoria said. When you ask if you still hate me, I don't really know how to respond. Because it feels like you decided to hate me without ever actually asking me what happened. Daniel sat down on the edge of the bed, his back to her. His chest felt heavy. All the anger he'd carried for 6 months, all the righteous fury, all the certainty that he'd been wronged. It was crumbling, and he didn't know what to do with the pieces. I was so sure, he said. I know. Morrison made it sound like you'd gone behind my back. Like you'd taken credit for my work. Morrison's an asshole who wanted to create drama between us, so you'd quit and they could hire someone cheaper. You think it's a coincidence that they replaced you with a kid fresh out of college at half your salary? He hadn't thought about it that way. Hadn't thought about much of anything except his own wounded pride. I trusted you, he said quietly. With my work, with Emma, with everything. And when I thought you'd betrayed that, you didn't think. That's the problem. You just assumed the worst and shut me out. You put your name on my proposal. Our names, both of them. Like we were colleagues working together, which is what we were. But the client wanted you specifically. The client was a tech bro who'd Googled me and saw that my family's company was worth billions. He thought having me attached to the project would impress his investors. It had nothing to do with the actual work. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. He was exhausted. From the day, from the flight, from this conversation that was pulling apart everything he'd believed for half a year. Why didn't you fight harder? He asked. When I pushed you away, why did you just let me go? But Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough with emotion. Because I was tired, Daniel. I spent weeks trying to explain myself while you treated me like I was the enemy. Every attempt I made to talk to you, you shot down. Every message, ignored. Every call, blocked. After a while, I had to accept that you didn't want the truth. You wanted someone to blame, and I was convenient. That's not fair, isn't it? You needed a villain in your story. I fit the role. Easier than admitting you might have made mistakes, too. What mistakes? I asked you to review my work. That's not... You gave me access Friday night and expected me to review a 3-month project by Monday morning. You didn't check your phone all weekend even though you knew I was working on something urgent. You never once asked me for my side of things after Morrison called you. You just assumed, Daniel. You assumed the worst about someone who'd spent 2 years caring about you and your daughter. The words hit like punches, each one landing with uncomfortable accuracy. And maybe that's on me, Victoria continued. Maybe I should have known better than to get involved with someone who clearly had trust issues. But I thought we were different. I thought we were building something real. We never even defined what we were, because you never wanted to talk about it. Every time I tried to bring it up, you'd change the subject or make a joke or say, we should just see where things go. You kept me at arm's length while simultaneously letting me into every other part of your life. I had a daughter to think about. I couldn't just, I know you had to be careful. I never pushed you for more than you were ready to give. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt, Daniel. Spending nights at your apartment, having breakfast with your daughter, meeting your mother, doing all the things couples do while you refuse to even acknowledge that's what we were. He stood up again, pacing now. 3 steps to the window, 3 steps back. The room felt too small. I didn't know what we were, he admitted. After Sarah died, I thought I was done with relationships. Thought it was just me and Emma forever. Then you showed up and everything got complicated. Complicated, Victoria repeated. That's one word for it. You know what I mean. Do I? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you liked having me around when it was convenient. But the second things got hard. You bailed. That's not what happened. No? Then tell me what happened, from your perspective. Because clearly I've been working with incomplete information. Daniel stopped pacing, stood in the middle of the room, trying to organize 6 months of hurt and anger into something coherent. I got the call from Morrison on a Monday night, he started. My boss told me the client had seen a revised version of my proposal, said it was better than my original, asked why I hadn't submitted it myself. And you said? I said I didn't know what he was talking about, that I hadn't revised anything. He forwarded me the file. It had your digital signature on it as a consulting contributor. Consulting contributor, not lead. It didn't matter. The client loved it, wanted to move forward immediately. My boss said you'd be taking point on implementation. I told you, I said no to that. Well, he told me different, said the client requested you specifically and that I'd be supporting your work instead of leading my own project. Victoria was silent for a moment. He lied to you. Or you're lying to me now. Why would I lie? What would I possibly gain from any of this? I don't know. That's the whole problem. I don't know why you did any of it. Don't know why you changed my proposal without telling me. Don't know why you took the project. Don't know why you showed up at my apartment acting like you'd done nothing wrong. Because I didn't do anything wrong. Her voice rose, finally breaking. I found a mistake in your work and I fixed it. I tried to tell you about it and you ignored me. I tried to keep you involved in the project and Morrison pushed me into a corner. I tried to explain myself and you literally threatened to call the cops on me. At what point in this story am I the villain, Daniel? Please explain it to me because I've spent 6 months trying to figure out what I did that was so unforgivable. The rawness in her voice cut through everything else. He'd never heard her sound like that, desperate and angry and hurt all at once. You made me look incompetent, he said quietly, in front of my boss, in front of the client. You made it seem like my work wasn't good enough. Your work was brilliant. The error was a simple data mix-up that could have happened to anyone. It didn't reflect on your competence at all. Then why didn't Morrison see it that way? Why did he put you in charge? I don't know. Maybe because I'm a Blake and having that name attached to the project made him look good. Maybe because he's a misogynist who likes pitting people against each other. Maybe because the whole firm is toxic and values politics over actual talent. But none of that was my fault. Daniel's head was pounding. He sat back down on the bed, this time closer to the middle, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from where Victoria still sat with her knees pulled up. I worked so hard on that proposal, he said. 3 months of nights and weekends, missing Emma's soccer games, barely sleeping. It was supposed to be the thing that changed everything for us. Better salary, better hours. Proof that I could still build a career while being a single dad. I know. You think I didn't see how much it meant to you? Why do you think I spent an entire weekend trying to fix it instead of just letting you fail? Maybe I should have failed. At least then it would have been on my own terms. That's pride talking. Maybe. But it's my pride, my career, my choices. And you took that away from me. I didn't take anything. I gave you a chance to succeed. You made me dependent on you. Made it so I couldn't even take credit for my own work without acknowledging your contribution. Victoria uncurled from her defensive position. She turned to face him, though he still couldn't see her clearly in the dark. Is that what this is really about? She asked. Your ego? It's not about ego, it's about respect. Respect goes both ways, Daniel. You respected me enough to ask for my help reviewing your proposal. But the second something went wrong, you didn't respect me enough to ask for an explanation. You should have insisted on giving one. I tried multiple times. You were the one who wouldn't listen. They were going in circles now, the same arguments looping back on themselves. Daniel felt exhausted by it, by all of it. I don't know how to fix this, he said finally. I don't even know if it can be fixed. That's up to you. How is it up to me? Because I already apologized 6 months ago, in that email you never read. I apologized for not finding a better way to reach you, for the confusion with Morrison, for anything and everything I might have done that hurt you. I took responsibility for my part in the mess, but you never gave me the chance to hear that apology. You decided I was guilty, and that was that. What did the email say? Does it matter now? Yeah, it matters. Victoria pulled her phone from the nightstand. The screen lit up her face, making her features visible for the first time since they'd turned off the lights. Her eyes were red. Makeup smudged at the corners from wiping away tears she probably thought he couldn't see. She scrolled through something, then started reading. Daniel, I know you're angry and confused, and you have every right to be. I tried to call you all weekend but couldn't reach you. There was an error in the Q3 financial projections. The source data was from 2019 instead of 2020. I caught it Friday night when you asked me to review the proposal. I spent the weekend trying to tell you, but when I couldn't get through, I made the decision to fix it myself, rather than let you go into Monday's meeting with bad numbers. I submitted a corrected version with both our names on it. I never meant to take credit for your work. This was always your project, your vision, your brilliance. I was just trying to make sure one small mistake didn't derail everything you'd built. Please call me when you get this. We need to talk. I'm sorry for any confusion or hurt I've caused. That was never my intention. You mean too much to me for me to ever want to undermine you. V. The silence after she finished reading felt enormous. I never saw that, Daniel said. I know. If I had, would it have changed anything? Or would you have found another reason to be angry at me? He didn't know. That was the honest answer. 6 months ago, he'd been so deep in his own hurt and wounded pride that he might have read that email and still found fault in it, still found a way to make her the villain. "I'm sorry," he said. The words felt inadequate. "For not reading it, for not giving you a chance to explain, for treating you like you'd betrayed me when you were actually trying to help." Okay? Just that, okay. Not, "I forgive you," or "it's fine," or any of the things people usually said to smooth over conflicts. "Is it?" he asked. "Okay, I don't know. I'm tired, Daniel. I've been tired for 6 months. Tired of wondering what I did wrong. Tired of missing you and Emma. Tired of second-guessing every decision I made that weekend. Tired of walking past your building and hoping I might accidentally run into you. Just tired." He reached out without thinking, found her hand in the darkness. She didn't pull away. "You walked past my building?" "Every day on my way to work. It added 10 minutes to my commute, but I did it anyway. Kept thinking maybe one day I'd see you leaving with Emma, that maybe you'd have had time to cool off and we could finally talk. I moved," he said quietly. "What?" 3 months ago. Emma kept asking when you were going to visit. It was easier to move somewhere you'd never been than to keep explaining why you weren't coming back. Victoria's hand tightened around his. "You moved because of me?" "Because of everything. The memories, the questions I couldn't answer, the way Emma would look at me like I'd broken something precious, which I guess I had. She really missed me? So much. She still asks sometimes, wants to know if you're okay, if you have a new best friend now, if you still like strawberry pancakes." Victoria made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. "She remembers the pancakes?" "She remembers everything. That's the worst part. She's 7 now, and she still remembers the woman who used to have breakfast with us on Sundays and helped her practice reading and taught her that terrible card game with all the complicated rules. Rat-a-tat-cat. That's the one." "I miss her too," Victoria whispered. "I know I don't have any right to, but I do. I miss both of you." Daniel's throat felt tight. He kept holding her hand, anchoring himself with that small point of contact. "I was so sure you'd betrayed me," he said. "It was easier than admitting I'd messed up, easier than facing the fact that I'd asked for your help and then ignored you when you tried to give it. I needed you to be the villain because the alternative was accepting that I'd destroyed something good because I was too proud and too scared to trust what we had." "What did we have, Daniel?" The question again, the one he'd been avoiding for 2 years. "I don't know," he admitted. "But it was important, and I ruined it, and I'm sorry." They sat there in the darkness, hands clasped, the storm still raging outside. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled, and neither of them moved. "I stayed at Blake Industries longer than I wanted to," Victoria said eventually. "The Chicago expansion was supposed to last 8 months. I've been there for 3 years now. Why? Because leaving felt like giving up, like admitting that we were really done and I should move on. As long as I was still in the same city, there was a chance, even if it was a stupid, unrealistic chance. That's not stupid. It kind of is. Reorganizing my entire life around someone who made it clear he wanted nothing to do with me." "I did want something to do with you. That was the problem. I wanted too much and I didn't know how to handle it." Victoria shifted, turning to face him more fully. He still couldn't see her clearly, but he could feel the change in her attention. "What do you mean, too much?" "I was falling in love with you," he said. The words came out rough, like they'd been stuck behind his ribs for months. "That's why I never wanted to define what we were. Because if we put a name on it, it became real. And if it was real, I could lose it. I'd already lost Sarah. I couldn't risk that again." The confession hung between them, raw and exposed. "So instead you made sure you'd lose it anyway," Victoria said softly. "Just on your own terms." "Yeah, basically." "That's really stupid, Daniel." "I know. Like, catastrophically stupid. I'm aware." She pulled her hand from his, and for a second he thought she was done. Thought this whole conversation had been too little, too late. But then he felt her move closer, felt the mattress shift as she turned to face him fully. "I was falling in love with you too," she said. Past tense, 6 months ago, before everything fell apart. I was terrified because I'd never felt that way about anyone before. Never wanted to build a life with someone. Never wanted to be part of a family. And then there you were with your spreadsheets and your daughter and your ridiculous coffee addiction. And I wanted all of it. Wanted to wake up in your too small apartment and make terrible pancakes and help Emma with her homework. Wanted to be someone's person, your person. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest. "Victoria, but then you showed me that it wasn't real," she continued, "that the second things got hard, you'd rather believe the worst about me than actually ask what happened. That scared me more than anything. Because how do you build a life with someone who doesn't trust you enough to ask questions before making judgments?" "You can't," he said quietly. "No, you can't." The storm outside was starting to ease. The thunder was more distant now, the rain softer against the windows. "Where does that leave us?" Daniel asked. "I don't know. Where do you want it to leave us?" "I want to be less of an idiot. That's a start. I want to stop assuming the worst about people just because I'm scared of being hurt. Also good. And I want—" He hesitated, trying to find the right words. "I want the chance to prove that I can be better than I was 6 months ago. That I can listen before judging. That I can trust instead of assuming. With me? Or in general? Both. But especially with you." Victoria was quiet. He could hear her breathing, could feel the warmth of her beside him in the darkness. "I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago either," she said finally. "I'm not sure I can just pick up where we left off and pretend none of this happened. I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" "I'm asking for a chance to know who you are now. To let you know who I am now, to see if there's still something worth building between us." "That's a lot to ask." "I know. And if you say no, I'll accept that. I'll thank you for this conversation, and we'll get through the rest of this conference as professionally as possible, and then we'll go our separate ways. But I had to ask, because spending 6 months without you taught me exactly how much I'd lost. And I don't want to lose it again without at least trying to fix it." Thunder rumbled, far away now. The worst of the storm had passed. "I have a job offer in New York," Victoria said. "Blake Industries East Coast Division. Better position. Better everything, really. I've been putting off giving them an answer because I kept thinking maybe something would change here. Maybe you'd show up at one of these conferences and we'd finally talk. Maybe Emma would track me down on social media when she got older and demand to know why I disappeared. Stupid reasons to reorganize my life around." Daniel's heart sank. "When do you leave?" "I haven't accepted yet. But you're going to—" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Staying in Chicago hasn't exactly worked out the way I hoped. I don't want you to leave. You didn't want me around 6 months ago. I was wrong about so many things, but especially about that." Victoria sighed. It was a tired sound, heavy with everything they'd said and everything still left unsaid. "I need time to think about this," she said. "About all of it. This isn't the kind of decision you make at 2 in the morning in a hotel room during a thunderstorm." "I know. But I'm glad we talked, even if it was hard, even if I cried and probably look like a mess right now." "You don't look like a mess. You can't even see me." "Doesn't matter. You never look like a mess." She laughed softly, and the sound made something ease in his chest. "Liar. Honest. You could show up covered in mud, and you'd still be the most put-together person in the room. That's objectively false, but thank you." They sat there for a moment, the space between them feeling different now. Still careful, still uncertain, but not quite as broken as it had been an hour ago. "We should try to sleep," Victoria said. "We both have early meetings." "Yeah." Neither of them moved. "Daniel?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for answering my question, even if it took you a while." "Which question?" "Whether you still hate me." He thought about it, about the anger he'd carried for 6 months, about the assumptions he'd made, about the truth he'd finally heard. "I never hated you," he said. "I was just too scared to admit I still loved you." The words hung there, simple and true. Victoria didn't respond right away. When she did, Her voice was barely above a whisper. Past tense or present? I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe neither. I just know that losing you felt like losing part of myself. And sitting here talking to you feels like finding something I thought was gone forever. She reached for his hand again, laced her fingers through his. Let's sleep, she said. We can figure out the rest tomorrow. Okay. They lay back down, still holding hands across the space between them. The room was dark and quiet now, the storm reduced to a gentle patter against the windows. Daniel closed his eyes and felt Victoria's thumb brush across his knuckles in a gesture so familiar it made his chest ache. Tomorrow there would be conferences and presentations and all the complicated reality of two people trying to figure out if they could rebuild what they'd broken. But tonight, in the darkness, with her hand in his and 6 months of silence finally shattered, it felt like maybe they had a chance. Maybe that was enough for now. Daniel woke to pale gray light filtering through the curtains and the disorienting sensation of warmth against his side. For a confused moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Then it all came rushing back. Seattle, the storm, the conversation that had cracked him open in the middle of the night. Victoria. She was curled against him, her head resting on his shoulder, one arm draped across his chest. They'd fallen asleep holding hands, but sometime during the night they'd gravitated toward each other like they used to, like muscle memory overriding 6 months of distance. He didn't move, didn't want to wake her, didn't want this moment to end and reality to come crashing back in. Her breathing was slow and even, peaceful. He'd forgotten what she looked like when she slept, the way her face softened, losing all that CEO composure. She looked younger like this, vulnerable in a way she never allowed when she was awake. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He reached for it carefully, trying not to disturb her. A text from his mom. Emma wants to video chat before school. You awake? He glanced at the time. 6:15. His presentation wasn't until 9, but he needed to shower and go over his notes and definitely needed coffee before he could function like a human being. Carefully, slowly, he extracted himself from Victoria's embrace. She made a small sound of protest, reaching for him in her sleep, but didn't wake. He pulled the blanket up around her shoulders and grabbed his phone, heading into the bathroom. He closed the door quietly before calling his mom. Emma's face filled the screen immediately, bright and excited despite the early hour. Daddy! Hey, sweetheart, you're up early. Grandma's making pancakes, the good kind with chocolate chips. She was already in her school uniform, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that was slightly crooked. His mom had never quite mastered the art of 7-year-old hairstyling. Sounds delicious. You being good for Grandma? Uh-huh. We watched a movie last night and she let me stay up until 9:30. She said it like it was a grand conspiracy. Wow, that's pretty late. I know. Daddy, guess what happened at school yesterday? She launched into a detailed story about a playground incident involving her best friend Sophie and a boy named Marcus, who'd apparently stolen Sophie's jump rope. Daniel listened, making the appropriate responses, but his mind kept drifting to the woman sleeping in the next room. What were they doing? What had last night actually changed? He'd apologized. She'd explained. They'd both admitted to feelings that maybe still existed or maybe were just ghosts of what used to be, but that didn't solve anything concrete. She still had a job offer in New York. He still had a life in Chicago, built specifically to avoid running into her. They still had 6 months of damage between them. Daddy, you're not listening. He refocused on Emma. Sorry, baby. What did you say? I said Mrs. Peterson wants to meet with you about the science fair project. Can you come to school next week? I'll be back Sunday night. We can talk to her Monday, okay? Okay. She paused, her expression shifting to something more serious. Daddy, are you sad? The question caught him off guard. What? No, why would you think that? You have your sad face, the one you get when you're thinking about grown-up stuff. Kids were too perceptive. He forced a smile. I'm fine, Em. Just tired. It was a long day yesterday. Is your work stuff going good? Yeah, presentations this morning. I'll tell you all about it when I get home. Okay. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, sweetheart. Be good for Grandma. I will. Bye. She blew him a kiss through the screen, and then his mom's face appeared, taking the phone from Emma. She's fine, his mother said immediately. Stop worrying. I'm not worrying. You're always worrying. It's your default setting. She studied him through the screen. You look tired. Bad night? Just didn't sleep well. Hotel beds, you know. The sound suggested she didn't quite believe him but wasn't going to push. Well, good luck with your presentation. Call us tonight? Will do. Thanks, Mom. Anytime, honey. He ended the call and sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at his phone. Emma's question echoed in his head. Are you sad? He didn't know. Sad seemed too simple for what he was feeling. Confused, maybe. Hopeful and terrified at the same time. Like standing on the edge of something that could either save him or destroy him completely. A knock on the bathroom door made him jump. Daniel? You okay in there? Victoria's voice was rough with sleep. Yeah, just talking to Emma. I'll be out in a minute. Okay. He heard her footsteps retreat. He stood, splashed water on his face, tried to pull himself together. When he opened the door, Victoria was sitting on the edge of the bed, checking her phone. She'd pulled on a cardigan over her sleep clothes. Her hair was a mess, sticking up in directions that would probably horrify her if she saw a mirror. Everything all right with Emma? She asked without looking up. Yeah, she wanted to tell me about some playground drama. That sounds important. Life or death, apparently. Victoria smiled slightly, still focused on her screen. I have a breakfast meeting at 7:30 with some investors. You? Presentation at 9. I should probably go over my notes. Right. Awkward silence settled between them. The easy intimacy of last night felt distant in the morning light. They were both retreating into professional mode, putting distance between themselves and everything they'd said in the dark. Victoria set down her phone, finally meeting his eyes. So, that was a lot last night. Yeah, I meant what I said about needing time to think. I know. But I'm glad we talked. I'm glad I finally understand what happened, what you thought happened. Me too. More silence. This was excruciating. We're being weird, Victoria said. Very weird. I don't like being weird with you. Same. She stood, crossing to where he still hovered near the bathroom door. This close, he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She probably hadn't slept much better than he had. Can we try something? She asked. Depends on what it is. Can we just be normal today? Not avoid each other, not make things more complicated than they already are. Just exist in the same space without it being a whole thing. I don't know if I know how to do that with you anymore. Me neither. But maybe we could try? He considered it. The alternative was spending the rest of the conference actively avoiding her, which would be obvious and uncomfortable for everyone. Or they could attempt something resembling normalcy and see what happened. Okay, he said. We can try. Good. She glanced at the clock. I need to shower and get ready. My meeting's in an hour. Right. He gestured vaguely toward the desk. Daniel? Yeah? Thank you. For listening last night, for apologizing. It means a lot. You don't have to thank me for basic decency. Maybe not, but I'm doing it anyway. She disappeared into the bathroom, and Daniel heard the shower turn on a moment later. He sat at the desk, opened his laptop, stared at his presentation slides without really seeing them. Being normal. Right. He could do that. Except nothing about this situation was normal. Nothing about the way his heart had kicked when she'd stood close to him just now was normal. Nothing about wanting to pull her back into bed and continue last night's conversation was normal. He forced himself to focus, went through his slides, checked his notes, rehearsed his opening. By the time Victoria emerged from the bathroom fully dressed in a sharp navy suit, he'd almost convinced himself he could get through today without everything falling apart. Bathroom's yours, she said, gathering her things. I'll probably see you at the conference, right? Probably. Good luck with your presentation. Thanks. You too. With your investor thing. She paused at the door, turned back. Daniel? Last night you said you were falling in love with me. Past tense. His breath caught. Yeah? Was that really past tense, or were you just scared to say present? The question hung there between them, heavy, and impossible. I don't know, he admitted. I don't know how to separate what I felt then from what I feel now. It's all tangled up. Victoria nodded slowly. Okay, that's honest at least. Is that what you wanted to hear? I wanted the truth, that's all. She opened the door. See you later. And then she was gone, leaving Daniel alone in a hotel room that still smelled like her shampoo, with a question he couldn't answer burning in his chest. The conference center was massive, all glass and modern architecture designed to impress. Daniel navigated through crowds of people in expensive suits, following signs toward the main presentation hall. His session wasn't until 9, but he wanted to scope out the room first, make sure the tech setup worked, deal with any potential problems before they became disasters. He was reviewing the AV connections when someone called his name. Hayes, that really you? He turned to find Marcus Chen, a former colleague from Morrison. They'd worked together for about 6 months before Daniel left. Had gotten along well enough without ever being particularly close. Chen, how have you been? Can't complain. You know how it is. Same corporate nonsense, different day. Marcus leaned against the stage, studying him. Heard you landed at Sterling and Associates. How's that treating you? It's good. Different pace than Morrison, but good. I bet. Probably less backstabbing, too. Daniel's expressions must have shown something because Marcus held up his hands. Sorry, man. That was tactless. I know things got messy when you left. It's fine, ancient history. Is it, though? Because I saw Blake arrive this morning, and the energy between you two in that lobby yesterday could have powered the entire building. Of course, people had noticed. Daniel should have known better than to think their tension was subtle. It's complicated, he said. Isn't it always? Marcus checked his watch. I've got a panel in 20, but we should grab drinks later, catch up properly. Maybe. I've got a packed schedule. Don't we all? But seriously, it's good to see you, Hayes. You look better than you did at Morrison, less stressed. Thanks, I think. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder and headed off, leaving Daniel to wonder what exactly he'd looked like 6 months ago that less stressed was apparently an improvement. He finished his tech check and headed to grab coffee. The conference center had a cafe set up in one of the side rooms, and he joined the line of people who all looked like they needed caffeine as desperately as he did. That's when he saw her. Victoria was standing near the windows with 3 older men in expensive suits, clearly in the middle of her investor meeting. She was in full CEO mode, gesturing confidently, making some point that had all 3 men nodding along. She looked completely in control, like she owned the room and everyone in it. This was the version of her that intimidated people. The billion-dollar Blake who could make or break companies with a single decision. The woman who was so far out of his league it was almost laughable that they'd ever been anything to each other. As if sensing his attention, she glanced over. Their eyes met across the cafe, and for a second, everything else fell away. He saw her expression shift, just slightly, just enough that he knew she was thinking about last night too. About everything they'd said and everything still left unresolved. Then one of the investors said something and she turned back, the moment broken. Daniel got his coffee and headed back toward the presentation hall, trying to shake off the uncomfortable feeling in his chest. This was going to be a long day. His presentation went well, better than well, actually. He'd always been good at this part, taking complex data and making it accessible, telling stories with numbers. The audience asked smart questions, and he had good answers. And by the time he wrapped up at 9:45, he felt more confident than he had in months. Maybe he didn't need Morrison's prestige or Victoria's connections. Maybe his work could stand on its own merit. He was packing up his laptop when someone approached from the side. He expected another attendee with follow-up questions. Instead, he found Victoria standing there with 2 cups of coffee. Peace offering, she said, holding one out. Figured you could use the caffeine after that. He took it, surprised. You saw the presentation? Caught the last 20 minutes. You were good, really good. Thanks. I mean it. That section on predictive modeling for market volatility was brilliant. I might actually steal some of those ideas. Feel free. I owe you one anyway. She winced slightly. Too soon for jokes about that? Probably. Sorry. They stood there awkwardly, both holding coffee, surrounded by people packing up and filing out. There's a lunch session I need to sit in on, Victoria said. Some panel about emerging markets. You going? Hadn't planned on it. My next thing isn't until 2. You should come. It might be useful for your work. Plus, she hesitated. Normal, remember? We're trying normal. He considered it. Sitting through a panel discussion with Victoria beside him, both of them pretending the last 12 hours hadn't happened. It sounded like torture. Sure, he heard himself say. Why not? The panel was actually interesting, which helped. 4 industry experts discussing investment opportunities in Southeast Asia, with enough data and projections to keep Daniel engaged. Victoria sat beside him, taking notes on her tablet, occasionally leaning over to whisper comments that were either insightful or sarcastic depending on which panelist was talking. It felt familiar. This was what they used to do, attend conferences together, sitting side by side, providing running commentary on the proceedings. They'd always had the same opinions about who was full of nonsense and who actually knew what they were talking about. $20 says the guy on the left contradicts himself within the next 5 minutes, Victoria whispered during a brief pause. You're on. 4 minutes later, the panelist in question claimed that infrastructure investment was both essential and completely unnecessary in the same breath. Victoria looked at Daniel with an expression of vindication. Pay up, she mouthed. He pulled a 20 from his wallet and handed it over. She grinned, tucking it into her pocket. For a moment, it was easy. For a moment, they were just Daniel and Victoria again, the way they'd been before everything got complicated. Then the panel ended and reality came crashing back. They filed out with the crowd, heading toward the main lobby where people were gathering for the lunch buffet. I should probably network, Victoria said, though she didn't sound enthusiastic about it. Make nice with some potential clients. Yeah, I've got some people I should talk to too. Neither of them moved. This is stupid, Victoria said suddenly. What is? This, us, pretending we're fine when we're clearly not. I thought we were trying normal. Normal would be us getting lunch together and actually talking instead of making awkward small talk and then running away to opposite corners of the room. She had a point. You want to get lunch? He asked. Like actual lunch, not conference buffet networking lunch. There's a place 2 blocks from here, Thai food. Should be quiet this time of day. How do you know that? I looked up restaurants nearby last night when I couldn't sleep. You couldn't sleep? Could you? Fair point. They left the conference center, stepping out into a Seattle afternoon that was trying very hard to be sunny. The rain had cleared overnight, leaving everything washed clean and bright. They walked side by side, not touching, but not deliberately maintaining distance either. The restaurant was small and tucked into a side street, exactly the kind of place you'd only know about if you'd specifically searched for it. They got a table near the back, away from the handful of other customers. I used to come here when I first moved to Seattle, Victoria said, studying the menu even though she seemed to already know what she wanted. Before the Chicago expansion, back when I was still figuring out if I wanted to stay with Blake Industries or start my own thing. You thought about leaving? All the time. My family's company is... She set down the menu. It's complicated. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure to be a certain kind of person, make certain kinds of decisions. Sometimes I wondered what my life would look like if I just walked away from all of it. Why didn't you? Because I'm good at what I do. Because walking away felt like admitting I couldn't handle it. Because... She paused. Because I didn't have anywhere else to go. No one else to be. The server came by and they ordered. Pad Thai for Victoria, green curry for Daniel. When they were alone again, the conversation hung in the air between them. Is that why you're considering the New York position? Daniel asked. To have somewhere else to go? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just running away again. I'm good at that. You don't seem like someone who runs away from things. You'd be surprised. I've been running my whole life. From my family's expectations, from relationships that got too serious, from anything that might actually require me to be vulnerable. She looked at him directly. From you when things got complicated. You didn't run from me, I pushed you away. Before that, before the Morrison thing, you asked me once what we were doing, if we were dating or just friends or something else, remember? He did. It had been about a month before everything fell apart. They'd been at his apartment, and Emma had introduced Victoria to one of her teachers as Daddy's girlfriend. The teacher had smiled and said something about what a lovely family they made. And later that night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel had brought it up. Victoria had deflected, made a joke, changed the subject. He'd let her. "I remember, Kate," he said. "I didn't answer because I was scared. Because saying yes meant admitting I wanted something I'd never wanted before. A partner, a family. All the messy, complicated, wonderful things that come with actually committing to someone. And instead you got Morrison and 6 months of silence. Yeah, the universe has a sense of humor like that." Their food arrived. They ate in silence for a few minutes, both lost in their own thoughts. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said finally. "Sure." "The New York job. When do you have to give them an answer?" Victoria set down her fork. "End of the month. They've been patient, but they need to know soon. 3 weeks. She had 3 weeks to decide if she was leaving Chicago, and by extension, leaving any possibility of fixing what they'd broken." "What's holding you back?" he asked. "If it's a better position, better everything, like you said, why haven't you already said yes?" "Honestly? Honestly. Because some stupid part of me kept hoping you'd show up at one of these conferences, that we'd finally talk and maybe figure out what the hell happened between us. And then maybe—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "It's dumb. I'm basically reorganizing my entire career around a relationship that doesn't even exist anymore." "It's not dumb." "It kind of is, Daniel. You made it very clear 6 months ago that you didn't want me in your life. I was wrong." "So you said, but that doesn't change the fact that we're fundamentally broken. You don't trust me. I don't trust that you won't just shut me out again the next time something goes wrong." "So what do we do?" "I don't know. That's what I've been trying to figure out." Daniel set down his own fork, leaning back in his chair. "Last night you asked if me falling in love with you was past tense or present. You said you didn't know." "I lied." Victoria's breath caught. "What?" "I know exactly when I fell in love with you. It was about 8 months ago. Emma had just lost her first tooth and she was so excited she couldn't sleep. You came over with a book about the tooth fairy and read it to her 3 times until she finally passed out. Then you sat with me in the kitchen while I panicked about her growing up too fast, and you didn't tell me I was being ridiculous. You just listened. I remember that night. I looked at you sitting there in my kitchen at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, listening to me spiral about losing baby teeth, and I thought, this is it. This is the person I want. Not someday, not eventually. Right now." Victoria's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Why didn't you say something?" "Because I was terrified. Because I'd already lost one person I loved and I didn't think I could survive losing another. Because it felt too good to be real, and I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop." "So you made sure it dropped?" "Yeah, pretty much." She wiped at her eyes impatiently. "You're an idiot." "I know. A complete idiot." "Agreed. And I'm an idiot too, because even after everything, even after 6 months of nothing, I'm sitting here wanting to forgive you." Daniel's heart stuttered. "Are you?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." She laughed, wet and shaky. "I spent half a year being angry at you, being hurt, telling myself I was better off without someone who could throw away 2 years over a misunderstanding. And then one night in a hotel room, and suddenly I'm right back where I started. Where's that? Wanting things I probably shouldn't want. Hoping for things that might not be possible." They looked at each other across the table, and Daniel felt the weight of everything they'd been and everything they might still be pressing down on both of them. "What if we tried?" he said quietly. "Tried what?" "Starting over, not picking up where we left off, but actually starting fresh. No assumptions, no unresolved history, just seeing what happens." "That's a nice idea, Daniel, but we can't just erase the past 6 months. I'm not saying we erase it. I'm saying we learn from it. I'm saying I know now what it feels like to lose you, and I don't ever want to feel that way again. I'm saying I spent 6 months being wrong about you, and I want the chance to spend the next 6 being right." That's a lot of pretty words. They're true words. Victoria pushed her food around her plate, not eating. "What about Emma?" You restructured your entire life to protect her from me being gone. You moved apartments. You probably told her I was never coming back. How do you explain suddenly changing your mind? That stopped him. He hadn't thought about that part. Hadn't considered what it would mean to bring Victoria back into Emma's life after 6 months of absence. I don't know, he admitted. But Emma asks about you constantly. She misses you. And yeah, it'll be complicated and I'll probably mess up the explanation. But he met Victoria's eyes. She loved you. And I hated taking that away from her almost as much as I hated taking it away from myself. What if we try this and it doesn't work? What if we can't fix what's broken? Then Emma loses you all over again. What if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what might have happened? Victoria closed her eyes, and Daniel could see the war happening behind her expression, fear and hope and caution all battling for dominance. I can't do this halfway, she said finally, opening her eyes. If we try this, I need to know you're actually in it, not holding back because you're scared, not ready to run the second things get hard. All in or nothing. I'm in. You say that now, but what about next time something goes wrong? Next time there's a misunderstanding or a miscommunication or I make a decision you don't agree with? Next time I'll talk to you. Ask questions. Not assume the worst. Promise? Promise. She studied him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her because she nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? Okay, we can try, but slowly and honestly. No more shutting each other out, no more running away. We talk about the hard stuff, even when it's uncomfortable. I can do that. And I need you to understand that I'm still considering the New York position. This doesn't automatically mean I'm staying in Chicago. That hurt more than he expected, but he understood. Okay. If I take that job, I need to know you'll support it, not resent me for leaving, not use it as an excuse to push me away again. If you take that job, we'll figure it out. Long distance, frequent visits, whatever it takes. I'm not losing you again because of geography. Victoria smiled, small and tentative. You're really serious about this. Completely serious. Even though it might be a disaster? Even though... She reached across the table, offering her hand. He took it, their fingers interlacing in a gesture that felt both familiar and brand new. Hi, she said softly. I'm Victoria Blake. I'm terrible at relationships and I'm terrified of commitment, and I'm probably going to mess this up at some point. He squeezed her hand. Hi, I'm Daniel Hayes. I'm a single dad with trust issues and a tendency to assume the worst about people. I'll definitely mess this up too. We're going to be a disaster together, aren't we? Probably. But maybe a good kind of disaster. She laughed, real and genuine, and the sound made something settle in Daniel's chest that had been restless for 6 months. They finished lunch and walked back to the conference center, still holding hands. People probably noticed. People definitely noticed. Daniel didn't care. At the entrance, Victoria paused. I have another meeting at 3. Something boring about quarterly projections. I've got a networking thing at 2:30, also boring. Want to meet up after? There's a reception tonight at 6. Together? Yeah, together. If that's okay. More than okay. She squeezed his hand once more before letting go. See you at 6 then. Victoria? She turned back. Thank you, he said, for giving me another chance, for not telling me to go to hell when you had every right to. Thank you for finally listening, she replied, for being honest about how you felt, for not letting pride get in the way of what might still be possible. They stood there for a moment longer, both reluctant to separate even though they'd see each other again in a few hours. Then Victoria smiled, turned, and walked into the conference center, leaving Daniel standing in the afternoon sun feeling lighter than he had in months. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Drinks at 7, hotel bar? He typed back, can't tonight. Have plans. The response came immediately. Plans with Blake? Saw you two at lunch, about damn time. Daniel shook his head, smiling despite himself. Apparently subtlety was impossible. He headed back inside, made it through his networking session on autopilot, his mind only half focused on the conversations happening around him. All he could think about was Victoria's hand in his, the way she'd looked at him across the lunch table, the tentative hope in her voice when she'd agreed to try. They were doing this. Actually doing this. It was terrifying. It was exactly what he wanted. At 5:30, he went back to the hotel room to change for the reception. Victoria wasn't there yet, probably still wrapping up her meeting. He showered quickly, put on a clean shirt, tried to tame his hair into something presentable. His phone rang. Emma's face filled the screen. "Hey, sweetheart, isn't it past your bedtime? Grandma said I could call you before bed. We made cookies." "That sounds fun. What kind?" "Chocolate chip. I ate 4 and Grandma said that was enough, but I think I could eat more." "4 is definitely enough. You'll make yourself sick." "That's what Grandma said." Emma paused, her expression turning more serious. "Daddy, are you happy?" The question again, but this time Daniel actually had an answer. "Yeah, baby, I think I am." "Good. You look happy. Different than yesterday." "Yesterday I was just tired." "No, yesterday you looked sad. Today you look like when we go to the park and I go really high on the swings." He laughed. "That's a very specific observation." "I'm good at observations. Mrs. Peterson says so." "She's right. You are." "Is it because of your work stuff?" "Kind of. It's complicated grown-up stuff." "Grown-ups always say that, but I think grown-up stuff is just normal stuff that you make complicated." Out of the mouths of babes. "You might be right about that," he said. "I'm right about lots of things. Grandma says I'm too smart for my own good." Grandma's probably right about that too. They talked for a few more minutes about cookies and school and the science fair project she was already planning, even though it wasn't due for months. By the time they hung up, it was nearly 6. Daniel was just grabbing his jacket when the door opened and Victoria walked in. She changed too, a black dress that was professional enough for a conference reception, but still made his brain short-circuit slightly. "You look nice," he managed. "Thanks. So do you." She set down her bag, touched up her lipstick in the mirror by the door. "Ready to go?" "Yeah, just need to." He patted his pockets, making sure he had his wallet, his phone, his room key. Victoria watched him with an amused expression. "You're nervous." "A little." "Why?" Because the last time we went to a conference reception together, we were still pretending we were just friends. And now we're whatever we are now." "Dating," Victoria said simply. "We're dating. That's what people call it when they hold hands at lunch and plan to spend the evening together." "Dating. Right. You can say it, Daniel. It's not a bad word." "Dating," he repeated. "We're dating. See? Not so hard." She crossed to him, straightened his collar even though it didn't need straightening. The gesture was intimate, familiar, the kind of thing she used to do before they'd leave his apartment for dinner or events. "This is going to be fine," she said quietly. "We're going to go downstairs, have boring conversations with boring people about boring industry trends, and then we're going to come back here and probably stay up too late talking again. That actually sounds perfect." "Good." She smiled, then leaned up and kissed his cheek. Quick and light, but it made his heart stutter anyway. "Come on, let's do this normal thing we're trying." They headed down to the reception together, and Daniel realized that for the first time in 6 months, he actually felt like himself again. Not the angry, hurt version who'd spent half a year avoiding memories and blocking numbers. Not the scared version who'd pushed away the best thing in his life because he was too proud to ask questions. Just Daniel. Walking into a room with Victoria beside him, ready to try again, ready to do better. The reception was exactly what Daniel expected. A sea of business suits, generic jazz music, and waiters circulating with tiny appetizers that looked fancy but tasted like cardboard. He grabbed a glass of wine from the bar, mostly to have something to do with his hands. Victoria was immediately pulled into conversation with a group of executives from a tech firm in San Francisco. Daniel hung back, watching her work the room with the kind of ease that came from a lifetime of these events. She laughed at the right moments, asked intelligent questions, made everyone feel like they were the most important person she'd talked to all night. He'd always admired that about her, the way she could navigate these social situations without it seeming fake or forced. "Hayes!" He turned to find Jennifer Walsh, a senior partner from a competing firm. They'd crossed paths a few times over the years, always friendly but never particularly close. "Jennifer, good to see you." "Likewise." I caught your presentation this morning. Solid work on the volatility modeling. Thanks. I appreciate that. Sterling's lucky to have you. I heard Morrison was a mess after you left. I wouldn't know. Haven't kept in touch. Smart man. She sipped her champagne, her eyes tracking across the room to where Victoria was still holding court. Interesting development there. What is? You and Blake. Last I heard, you two weren't exactly on speaking terms. Of course people knew. The industry wasn't that big, and apparently their falling out had been notable enough to generate gossip. People talk too much, Daniel said. They do. But in this case, they're not wrong. You two were attached at the hip for what, 2 years? Then radio silence. Now you show up at the same conference and suddenly you're back to finishing each other's sentences. We're just dating? Jennifer supplied helpfully. Because that's what it looked like at lunch, and I'm not the only one who noticed. Daniel took a drink of his wine, trying to figure out how to respond to that. The truth was too complicated. A deflection would just fuel more speculation. We're figuring things out, he said finally. Good for you, honestly. Blake's one of the smartest people in this industry. You could do a lot worse. I'm aware. Just don't screw it up again. Second chances are rare in business and in relationships. She moved off to talk to someone else, leaving Daniel to contemplate the weight of that statement. Don't screw it up again? Right. No pressure. Victoria caught his eye across the room and excused herself from her conversation, weaving through the crowd toward him. You look like you need rescuing, she said. Jennifer Walsh was just giving me relationship advice. Oh no, what did she say? That I shouldn't screw this up again. Victoria smiled. Sound advice. You planning to take it? Doing my best. She linked her arm through his, a casual gesture that somehow felt significant. Come on. There's someone I want you to meet. She led him across the room to a distinguished-looking man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive watch. Daniel Hayes, this is Robert Chen, CEO of Pacific Ventures. Robert, this is Daniel. He's with Sterling and Associates, and he gave a brilliant presentation this morning on market volatility. Robert shook his hand with a firm grip. Hayes, pleasure. I actually did catch part of your presentation. Impressive work. Thank you, sir. Victoria tells me you're one of the sharpest analysts she's worked with. High praise coming from her. Daniel glanced at Victoria, surprised. She just smiled innocently. I had good material to work with, she said. They talked for a few minutes about market trends and investment strategies. Robert was sharp, asking questions that actually required thought to answer. By the time he excused himself to talk to some board members, Daniel felt like he'd just been through a friendly interrogation. What was that about? He asked Victoria once they were alone. What was what about? You introducing me to Robert Chen like I'm some kind of protege. You're not a protege. You're a talented analyst who deserves recognition. I was just making sure the right people know that. You're networking for me? I'm correcting an injustice. Morrison buried your talent for years. Sterling's better, but they're still a smaller firm. If you want bigger opportunities, you need bigger connections. I didn't ask you to. I know. I wanted to. She touched his arm lightly. Is that okay, or does it feel like I'm overstepping? He considered it. 6 months ago, this would have felt like pity or charity or her trying to control his career. Now it just felt like someone who cared about him wanting to help. It's okay, he said. Just warn me next time so I'm not blindsided by meeting CEOs. Deal. They made their way around the room, talking to various people, sometimes together and sometimes separately. It felt natural, the way they used to work these events, supporting each other, making introductions, then reconvening to share observations about who was worth talking to and who was full of hot air. Around 8 o'clock, Daniel's phone buzzed, a text from his mom. Emma's asking for you again. She wants to show you the card she made. He excused himself from a conversation about emerging markets and found a quieter corner to video call. Emma's face appeared, beaming. She was in her pajamas, hair damp from a bath. Daddy, look what I made! She held up a piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings and stickers. It's a welcome home card for when you get back. That's beautiful, sweetheart. I love it. See, this is you. She pointed to a stick figure with dark hair. And this is me, and this is Grandma, and this is our new apartment. You did such a good job. I can't wait to see it in person. When are you coming home? Sunday night, 2 more days. That's so long. I know, but we can talk every day until then, okay? Okay. She paused, tilting her head. Daddy, are you at a party? He glanced around at the reception still in full swing. Kind of. A work party. Is it fun? It's getting better. Is there cake? No cake? Just fancy snacks that aren't as good as Grandma's cookies. Emma giggled. Nothing's as good as Grandma's cookies. They talked for a few more minutes until his mom appeared in the frame, gently steering Emma toward bedtime. Daniel said his goodnights and hung up, that familiar ache of missing his daughter settling in his chest. When he turned around, Victoria was standing a few feet away, clearly having watched at least part of the conversation. Sorry, he said. She wanted to show me something. Don't apologize. It's sweet. Victoria moved closer. She's gotten so big, even just from the glimpse I saw. She'll be 8 in a few months? I don't know how that happened. Does she still love that card game, the rat one? Rat-a-tat-cat. Yeah. She's gotten scary good at it. Beats me every time now. Victoria smiled, but there was something sad around the edges of it. I missed a lot. Yeah, you did. He said it gently, not as an accusation, just a fact. Do you think she'd want to see me? If this works out? The question made his chest tight. I think she'd be thrilled, but I need to figure out how to explain it first. She's old enough to remember you leaving, old enough to have questions. What will you tell her? The truth, probably. A kid-friendly version of it, that we had a fight and stopped talking, but we figured it out. That sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. And if she asks why it took so long, then I'll tell her that sometimes it takes a while to realize you were wrong about something, that pride gets in the way of doing the right thing. He met her eyes. She'll understand. She's a smart kid. She gets that from you. She gets it from her mom, actually. Sarah was brilliant, would have been a doctor if... He trailed off. Talking about Sarah with Victoria had always been complicated. Not because Victoria was jealous, she'd never been that petty, but because it meant acknowledging that he'd loved someone else first, loved someone else enough to build a life and have a child. You don't talk about her much, Victoria said quietly. It's hard, even after 3 years. I get that, or I try to at least. She paused. For what it's worth, Emma seems like an amazing kid. Sarah would be proud of what you've built with her. The words were simple, but they hit him hard. He'd spent 3 years wondering if he was doing right by his daughter, if he was enough on his own, if Sarah would approve of his parenting choices. Thank you, he managed. That means a lot. They stood there for a moment, the party continuing around them, but their little corner felt separate from it all. You want to get out of here? Victoria asked. We've done our networking, made our appearances. I think we've earned an escape. Where would we go? I don't know. Walk around the city? Find actual food that doesn't come on a tiny plate? Just not be here? Daniel considered the networking opportunities he'd be missing, the connections he should probably be making. Then he looked at Victoria standing there with hope in her eyes, offering him a chance to just exist together without the performance of it all. Yeah, he said. Let's go. They slipped out of the reception and into the cool Seattle evening. The city had that after-rain smell, everything clean and crisp. They walked without a destination, just moving through the downtown streets. There's a good burger place about 3 blocks from here, Victoria said. If you're interested in actual food, you've really done your research on this city. I spent a lot of time here in the early days, before Chicago. She glanced at him. Before you. They found the burger place and grabbed a booth in the back. It was the polar opposite of the fancy reception, vinyl seats, fluorescent lighting, a jukebox in the corner playing classic rock. Daniel ordered a burger and fries. Victoria got the same. When was the last time you ate actual junk food? He asked. Define junk food. Come on, you're always so careful about what you eat. I had pizza last month. Artisanal pizza with arugula doesn't count. She laughed. Fine, it's been a while. Happy? Thrilled. You need more grease in your life. Spoken like someone who eats like he's still 20. I have a 7-year-old. We eat a lot of chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. The good mac and cheese or the box stuff? Both, depending on the day. Emma's not picky. The food came and they ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Daniel had forgotten how nice this was, just sitting across from Victoria without any agenda, without having to be professional or careful or anything except themselves. Can I ask you something? Victoria said eventually. Sure. What made you finally listen? Last night, I mean. We could have had that same fight and ended up even further apart. But you actually heard me. What changed? Daniel wiped his hands on a napkin, thinking about it. Honestly, I think I was just tired of being angry. 6 months is a long time to carry that kind of weight. And being in that room with you, having you ask if I still hated you. He shook his head. I realized I didn't have a good answer. I'd been so sure for so long, but in that moment I couldn't actually remember why I was so certain you'd betrayed me. The anger was just habit at that point. That's depressingly honest. You asked. I did. She picked at her fries. I was terrified, asking that question. Because I thought you'd say yes, thought you'd confirm that I'd lost you completely, and there was no coming back from it. What would you have done? If I'd said yes? Probably cried myself to sleep and then taken the New York job the next morning. Started over completely. And now? Now I don't know. Now everything's complicated again. She met his eyes. But it's a better kind of complicated than being apart. They finished eating and walked some more, eventually finding themselves near the waterfront. The Space Needle was lit up against the dark sky, and the sound of water lapping against the pier was soothing. Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at it and sighed. Sorry, I should take this. It's my brother. No problem. She stepped away, and Daniel could hear snippets of the conversation. Something about a board meeting, her father wanting to talk to her, family business stuff that sounded tense and complicated. When she came back, her expression was carefully neutral. Everything okay? He asked. Fine, just family drama. My dad wants me to come back to Seattle permanently, take over the West Coast operations. Is that something you want? I don't know. It would mean more money, more power, all the things I'm supposed to want. But it would also mean being under my family's thumb again, having every decision questioned and analyzed and compared to what my father would have done. Sounds suffocating. It is. That's why I fought so hard for the Chicago expansion. It gave me space to be my own person, make my own choices without the Blake name hanging over everything. And New York would be the same thing. Distance, independence, a chance to prove I'm good at this because of my own skills, not just my last name. Daniel understood that. The need to prove yourself on your own merit, to be valued for what you could do, not who you were connected to. What do you actually want? He asked. Not what your family wants or what makes sense career-wise. What do you want? Victoria was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the water. I want to wake up in the morning and not feel like I'm performing. I want work that matters without consuming every part of my life. I want. She turned to look at him. I want what we had before. The easy parts. Coffee on Sunday mornings. Emma's terrible knock-knock jokes. Feeling like I belonged somewhere instead of always being the outsider looking in. You were never an outsider with us. I felt like one sometimes. Like I was playing house in someone else's life. Like eventually you'd realize I didn't actually fit and I'd have to leave. Is that why you never pushed for us to define what we were? Because you thought it was temporary? Maybe. Or maybe I just didn't want to jinx it by naming it. If we never called it a relationship, it couldn't really end, right? Stupid logic, I know. Not stupid, just scared. Yeah, I was scared. She moved closer, their shoulders nearly touching. I'm still scared. Of screwing this up again. Of wanting too much. Of not being enough. Victoria, you're one of the most successful people I know. How can you possibly think you're not enough? Because success is easy. Numbers and deals and making things happen. I can do that in my sleep. But this? She gestured between them. Relationships and feelings and being vulnerable with someone? I'm terrible at it. I don't know the rules. Don't know how to not mess it up. There aren't rules, that's the whole point. There have to be some rules. Otherwise, how do you know you're doing it right? Daniel turned to face her fully. You don't. You just try and hope for the best and communicate when things get hard. That's it. That's the whole secret. That sounds terrifying. It is, but it's also worth it. Victoria leaned her head against his shoulder, a gesture of trust that made his heart clench. They stood there watching the water, the city lights reflecting on the dark surface. I don't want to go to New York, she said quietly. No? No, I thought I did. Thought distance and a fresh start would fix everything. But it wouldn't. It would just be running away from what I actually want. And what do you actually want? This, us, a chance to build something real instead of always looking for the exit. Daniel wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. Then don't go. Stay in Chicago. Tell New York thanks, but no thanks. It's not that simple. I'd still be at Blake Industries Chicago, which means eventually my family will pull me back anyway. They always do. So quit Blake Industries. Start your own firm. Do consulting work. You're brilliant enough that clients would line up. You make it sound easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's possible, if you want it badly enough. She was quiet, considering. My father would lose his mind. Probably. He'd see it as a betrayal, turning my back on the family business. Is that what it would be? No. It would be me finally choosing what I want over what's expected, but he wouldn't see it that way. Does it matter what he sees? Victoria pulled back slightly to look at him. You're really suggesting I blow up my entire career to stay in Chicago? I'm suggesting you make the choice that makes you happy. If that's New York or Seattle, or starting your own thing or staying at Blake Industries, I'll support it. But don't make decisions based on fear or obligation. Life's too short for that. When did you get so wise? 3 years of single parenting makes you reevaluate your priorities pretty quick. She smiled, then kissed him. It was soft and tentative, like she wasn't quite sure she was allowed. Daniel kissed her back, one hand coming up to cup her face, and for a moment everything else fell away. When they broke apart, Victoria was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. What? He asked. I forgot what this felt like. What felt like? Wanting someone this much. It's overwhelming. Good overwhelming or bad overwhelming? I'm not sure yet. Ask me again in a few months. They walked back toward the hotel, taking the long route, neither of them wanting the night to end. By the time they made it back to their room, it was nearly midnight. Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Where'd you disappear to? Missed you at drinks. He typed back, sorry, got caught up. Rain check? The response was immediate. You were with Blake, weren't you? Don't lie. Daniel smiled and didn't reply. Victoria emerged from the bathroom in her sleep clothes, hair pulled back, face scrubbed clean of makeup. She looked young and tired and beautiful. Long day? She said, climbing into bed. Very long day. He took his turn in the bathroom, changing into sweatpants and a t-shirt. When he came out, Victoria was already under the covers, scrolling through her phone. Work emails? He asked. Family drama. My brother wants to know why I haven't responded to Dad about the Seattle position. What are you going to tell him? That I'm thinking about it. That I need time to make a decision. She set down her phone. That I might have other priorities now. Daniel climbed into bed beside her. This time there was no hesitation, no careful distance. She moved toward him naturally, and he wrapped an arm around her. This okay? He asked. More than okay. They lay there in the darkness, and Daniel realized this was what he'd missed most. Not the grand gestures or the exciting moments, but this, the quiet intimacy of just existing together, of feeling her breathe beside him, of knowing she was there. Daniel? Yeah? Thank you for giving me another chance, for listening, for not holding on to the anger. Thank you for being patient enough to wait for me to pull my head out of my ass. She laughed softly. That's one way to put it. Emma's going to freak out when she finds out you're back. In a good way? In the best way. She's been asking when she can see you again for months. I kept deflecting, but she's persistent. She gets that from you. Probably. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Fair warning, she's going to have about 1,000,000 questions. And she's going to want to know if you're my girlfriend now. Are you prepared for the interrogation of a very nosy 7-year-old? I think I can handle it. I've dealt with hostile board members. How much worse can a 7-year-old be? You'd be surprised. Emma doesn't hold back. I wouldn't want her to. I missed her directness, her honesty. She missed you too, more than I let myself admit. They fell silent, the weight of 6 months of missed time hanging between them. But it felt different now. Not like a burden, but like something they could actually work through together. We're really doing this, aren't we? Victoria said eventually. Looks like it. What if we screw it up again? Then we'll figure it out, talk it through, not let 6 months of silence happen. Promise? Promise. She shifted slightly, getting more comfortable against him. I'm going to turn down New York tomorrow. You don't have to decide right now. I already decided. I just needed to say it out loud. She tilted her head to look at him. I'm staying in Chicago, and I think I'm going to start my own consulting firm. Something small at first. Build it myself. That's huge. Terrifying is what it is, but also exciting. I've spent my whole life working for my family's company. Maybe it's time to build something that's actually mine. I think that's brilliant. Yeah? Yeah. And I think you're going to be amazing at it. She smiled, then settled back against him. Tell me something. Like what? Anything, something I don't know about the last 6 months. Something that happened while we weren't talking. Daniel thought about it. Emma lost another tooth, made the tooth fairy leave her $10 because she negotiated that if the first tooth was worth $5, subsequent teeth should increase in value. That is... Victoria laughed. That kid is going places. She's already smarter than me and she's only 7. I'm in trouble when she's a teenager. You'll be fine. You're a good dad. I'm trying. Some days are better than others. They talked for a while longer, sharing small stories from the past 6 months. Victoria told him about a disastrous pitch meeting where the client's dog had eaten her presentation notes. Daniel told her about Emma's school play, where she'd forgotten her lines and improvised an entire speech about dinosaurs instead. The stories were small and mundane and perfect. Eventually, Victoria's responses got slower, her words starting to slur with sleep. Daniel pulled the blanket up around them both and closed his eyes. For the first time in 6 months, he fell asleep easily. No anger keeping him awake. No regrets churning through his mind. No wondering what might have been if he'd just listened. Just Victoria in his arms and the promise of tomorrow. The rest of the conference passed in a blur of sessions and networking and stolen moments between obligations. Daniel and Victoria fell into an easy rhythm, meeting for coffee before morning panels, sitting together during lunch sessions, finding each other in crowded rooms like magnets drawn together after too long apart. People noticed. Of course they noticed. But Daniel found he didn't care about the whispers or the knowing looks. Let them talk. Let them speculate. He'd wasted 6 months caring too much about pride and assumptions. He wasn't about to waste any more time. Saturday evening, they skipped the final reception entirely and found a small Italian restaurant tucked away in Capitol Hill. The kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles, and a waiter who'd probably been working there for 30 years. This is nice, Victoria said, looking around. Very different from our usual conference haunts. Figured we'd earned a break from rubber chicken and forced conversation. No arguments here. They ordered wine and pasta, and for a while they just sat there, comfortable in the silence. Daniel watched her in the candlelight and thought about how close he'd come to losing this forever, how easily pride and fear could have kept them apart permanently. What are you thinking about? Victoria asked. How stupid I was. How much time we wasted. We've been over this. You apologized. I forgave you. We're moving forward. I know, but sometimes it just hits me. What if you hadn't been at this conference? What if we'd never had that conversation? Then we would have figured it out some other way. Or we wouldn't have, and we both would have moved on eventually. She reached across the table, taking his hand. But we did have the conversation. We are figuring it out. So stop torturing yourself with what-ifs. Easier said than done. I know, but try anyway. Their food arrived and they ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Victoria told him about her plans for the consulting firm, what kind of clients she wanted, how she'd structure it, the terror and excitement of building something from scratch. Daniel listened and asked questions and offered suggestions, watching her come alive talking about something that was entirely hers. "You're going to be amazing at this," he said. "You keep saying that. Because it's true. You're one of the smartest people I know. You're going to build something incredible. As long as I don't completely tank it in the first 6 months." "You won't." "You sound very sure of that." "I am sure." "You don't fail at things, Victoria. It's not in your nature." She smiled, but there was something uncertain in it. "I failed at plenty of things. I failed at us for 6 months. We both failed at that, and we're fixing it now." "Are we, though? I mean, really fixing it? Or are we just caught up in the emotion of reunion, and in 3 months we'll realize all the same problems are still there?" It was a fair question, one Daniel had been asking himself too. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I think we're different than we were 6 months ago. I think we've both learned things about ourselves that maybe we needed to learn. But yeah, there's no guarantee this works long term." "That's not very reassuring. Would you rather I lie and say everything's going to be perfect?" "No, I appreciate the honesty." She took a sip of wine. "I'm terrified, Daniel, of screwing this up, of disappointing you, of not being what Emma needs if I'm back in her life, of my family making everything complicated, of—" "Hey," he squeezed her hand. "One thing at a time. We don't have to solve everything tonight. But we do have to solve it eventually. Eventually, not right now." She nodded, but he could see the worry still etched in her expression. Victoria had always been like this, needing to see the full path ahead, to have every variable accounted for. It's what made her brilliant at business. But relationships didn't work that way. "Can I tell you something?" he said. "Always. I spent 3 years after Sarah died trying to control everything. Every detail of Emma's life, every decision, every possible outcome. I thought if I could just plan enough, be careful enough, protect her from every bad thing, then we'd be okay." That sounds exhausting. It was. And it didn't work. Because life doesn't care about your plans. Things happen anyway. People get sick. Deals fall through. Misunderstandings spiral into 6 months of silence. He met her eyes. "But you know what I learned? The things worth having are the things you can't fully control. Emma, even when she's being difficult and stubborn and making choices I don't agree with, she's worth every moment of uncertainty. And you," he paused, making sure he had the words right, "you're worth the risk of not knowing exactly how this turns out." Victoria's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." "Really? Because it felt kind of clumsy." "No, it was perfect." She wiped at her eyes. "And you're right. I can't control this. I can only show up and try my best and hope that's enough." "It's enough. You're enough." They finished dinner and walked back to the hotel hand in hand, Seattle's streets quiet in the late evening. Tomorrow they'd fly back to Chicago, back to real life and all the complications that came with it, but tonight was still theirs. In their hotel room, Victoria started packing her suitcase, folding clothes with methodical precision. "What time's your flight tomorrow?" Daniel asked. 2 p.m., you?" "Same, actually. We could share a car to the airport." "I'd like that." He watched her pack, struck by how domestic it felt. How normal. Like they'd done this 100 times before. "Victoria?" "Yeah?" "When we get back to Chicago, I want to tell Emma. About us. About you coming back into our lives." Victoria's hand stilled on the shirt she was folding. "Are you sure? We could wait. Make sure this is really working before we bring her into it." "I'm sure. She deserves to know. And honestly, I don't want to hide this from her. I don't want to repeat the mistake of keeping her in the dark about important things." "What will you say?" "The truth. That you and I had a fight and stopped talking, but we talked it out and we're trying again. That you miss her and want to see her if she's okay with that. And if she's not okay with it, then we'll take it slow, let her adjust, but I think she'll be thrilled." He moved closer. "She used to ask about you all the time, if you were okay, if you missed us. I think she always hoped you'd come back." Victoria set down the shirt, turning to face him. I don't want to disappoint her again. Then don't. Show up. Be present. That's all kids really want. Someone who's there and pays attention and cares. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. She nodded slowly, processing. Okay. We tell her when we get back. Okay. They finished packing in comfortable silence, then got ready for bed. This was their last night in Seattle, their last night in this room where everything had changed. Daniel felt the significance of it pressing down on him. In bed, Victoria curled against him like she'd been doing it for years instead of just days. "Can I ask you something?" she said into the darkness. "Sure." "Do you ever think about the future? Like, really think about it? Where we'll be in a year or 5 years or 10? "Sometimes. Why?" "I've been thinking about it a lot lately, trying to picture what it looks like, but I can't quite see it clearly." "What do you see?" "Pieces, moments, you and Emma and me at dinner, holidays, birthdays, normal stuff. But I can't picture the bigger things, where we're living, if we're—" She trailed off. "If we're what?" "Together. Like really together. Not just dating, but building a life." Daniel was quiet for a moment, thinking about it. "I can picture it." "Yeah?" "Yeah. I picture you in our apartment, the new one you've never seen. I picture Emma showing you her room and making you play that card game a dozen times. I picture Sunday mornings and awful coffee and you burning pancakes while Emma laughs at you. I'm getting better at pancakes. I know, but the image is still funny." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "I picture you staying over more and more until it stops making sense for you to leave. I picture Emma asking why you don't just live with us already. I picture eventually you do." Victoria's breath caught. "You've thought about me moving in? Is that too much too fast?" "No, maybe. I don't know." She shifted to look at him in the dim light. "I've thought about it too, but I was scared to say anything, scared you'd think I was pushing too hard or assuming too much. You're not. I'm just telling you what I see when I think about the future. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow or next month. But eventually, yeah, that's where I hope we're heading. What if my family makes things difficult? Then we deal with it together. What if Emma goes through a phase where she resents you being around? We deal with that too. What if your business takes off and you're traveling constantly? We figure it out. That's what partners do. They figure it out." "Partners," Victoria repeated softly. "I like the sound of that." "Good. Because that's what we are. Or what we're trying to be anyway." She kissed him then, slow and deep, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest. A certainty he hadn't felt in years. This was right. Messy and complicated and uncertain, but right. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria rested her forehead against his. "I love you," she whispered. "I should have said it 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. But I was scared and stupid, and I kept waiting for the perfect moment. But there's no perfect moment. There's just now, so I love you." Present tense, current, ongoing. Daniel's throat felt tight. "I love you too. Have for longer than I was willing to admit, longer than made sense. I love you and it terrifies me, and I'm done letting fear make my decisions. So we're doing this. Really doing this. Really doing this." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and Daniel dreamed of Sunday mornings and burnt pancakes and a future that looked nothing like the careful plans he'd made and everything like what he actually wanted. The flight back to Chicago felt different than the flight out. Daniel and Victoria sat together, her head on his shoulder while she worked on her laptop and he reviewed some reports. Comfortable. Easy. Like they'd been doing this forever. When they landed, they shared a car from the airport. Victoria got dropped off first, a high-rise downtown that screamed expensive. "I'll call you tonight?" she said before getting out. "You better." She kissed him goodbye, not caring that the driver was watching, and Daniel felt stupidly happy about it. At his apartment, his mom was waiting with Emma, who launched herself at him the moment he walked through the door. "Daddy, you're home. Did you bring me something?" "Maybe." He pulled a Space Needle keychain from his bag. "For your collection." "Yes, thank you." She hugged him fiercely, then pulled back. "You look different." His mom raised an eyebrow. Different house, sweetheart. Happier, less worried looking. Out of the mouths of babes indeed. The trip went well, Daniel said carefully. Made some good connections. Had some important conversations. His mother's knowing look suggested she understood exactly what kind of conversations he meant, but she didn't say anything in front of Emma. After Emma went to bed, his mom lingered in the doorway. So, she said, you going to tell me what happened in Seattle? What makes you think something happened? Danny, I'm your mother. I know when you're keeping something from me. She crossed her arms. And Emma's right. You look different, lighter. He sighed, gesturing for her to sit down. Victoria was at the conference. His mother's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. And we talked, a lot, about what happened 6 months ago, about what we both did wrong, about what we want going forward. Which is? To try again, to do it right this time. His mother was quiet for a long moment. I never understood what happened between you two. You were good together. Then suddenly she was just gone, and you wouldn't talk about it. I was angry and wrong. I thought she'd betrayed me, but I never actually asked her side of the story. Just assumed the worst and shut her out. That sounds like you. You've always been stubborn about these things. Thanks, Mom. Very helpful. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying you tend to dig in when you're hurt. It's been that way since you were a kid. She studied him. So what changed? She asked me if I still hated her, and I realized I didn't, that I never really did. I was just scared. Of what? Of loving someone again, of building something real and losing it, of screwing it up and hurting Emma in the process. His mother reached over, patting his hand. Life doesn't come with guarantees, honey. You can't protect yourself from every possible hurt. You just have to decide what's worth the risk. That's what Victoria said, more or less. Smart woman, you should listen to her. I'm trying. He paused. I want to tell Emma that Victoria and I are seeing each other again, that she'll be coming around more. How do you think she'll react? Honestly, I think she'll be over the moon. She's been asking about Victoria for months. Then tell her. But Danny? His mother's expression turned serious. Don't bring Victoria back into Emma's life unless you're sure about this. That little girl already lost her mother. She can't lose another important person because you're not ready to commit. I'm sure, Mom. I'm more sure about this than I've been about anything in years. Good. Then I'm happy for you, for all of you. After his mom left, Daniel called Victoria. Hey, she answered. You home safe? Yeah, Emma's asleep. Mom just left. Did you tell her? About us? Yeah. She said you're smart and I should listen to you more. Victoria laughed. I like your mom. She likes you too. Always did. He paused. I'm going to tell Emma tomorrow, after school. Thought you might want to be there, if you're ready. Silence on the other end, then softly, you want me to be there when you tell her? Yeah, I think she'd like that. Seeing you again, knowing it's real. What if she's angry that I disappeared? Then we'll deal with it, together. But I don't think she will be. I think she'll just be happy. Okay, yeah, I'll be there. What time? They made plans for the next day, and Daniel hung up feeling nervous and excited and terrified all at once. The next afternoon, Daniel picked Emma up from school as usual. She chattered about her day, about the quiz she'd aced, and the boy who'd gotten in trouble for throwing food at lunch. Hey, Em, he said as they walked to the car. We're making a stop before we go home. Where? It's a surprise. She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. A good surprise or a bad surprise? I think it's a good one, but you'll have to tell me. He drove to a park near their apartment, the one with the good playground and the duck pond. Victoria was already there, sitting on a bench, looking nervous. Emma spotted her immediately. Victoria! She broke into a run, not waiting for Daniel's okay, just sprinting across the grass toward the woman she'd spent 6 months missing. Victoria stood, and Emma crashed into her, hugging her fiercely. Victoria's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks as she held Emma tight. I missed you, Emma said, muffled against Victoria's jacket. I missed you so much. Where did you go? Why didn't you come back? I missed you too, sweetheart, so much. Victoria knelt down to Emma's level. I'm sorry I was gone for so long. Your dad and I had a fight, a big one, and we both made some mistakes. But we talked it out, and we're trying to fix things now. Are you back for good? Victoria glanced at Daniel, who'd caught up to them. I'm back, if that's okay with you. Of course it's okay. Why wouldn't it be okay? Emma looked between them, her face scrunched in confusion. Are you and Daddy dating now, like boyfriend and girlfriend? Yes, Daniel said, moving to stand beside them. Victoria and I are dating. Are you okay with that? Emma rolled her eyes with the exaggerated exasperation only a 7-year-old could muster. Daddy, I've been okay with it for like 2 years. I kept asking when you were going to kiss her already. Victoria burst out laughing, wiping at her tears. Out of the mouths of babes. What does that mean? It means you're very smart and you notice things adults try to hide. I know. Emma grabbed Victoria's hand. Come on, I want to show you the new swings they put in, and I learned a new card game. It's not as good as Rat-a-Tat-Cat, but it's pretty fun. And we have to go to the pond because the ducks had babies and they're so cute. She dragged Victoria toward the playground, still talking a mile a minute, and Daniel followed behind, his heart so full it almost hurt. They spent 2 hours at the park. Emma showed Victoria everything she'd learned in the past 6 months. New games, new skills on the monkey bars, the elaborate rules to the playground politics of 2nd grade. Victoria listened to it all with rapt attention, asking questions and laughing at Emma's stories. Watching them together, Daniel understood what he'd been missing. This. The 3 of them as a unit. Not perfect, not without complications, but whole. As the sun started to set, they headed back to the apartment. Emma insisted Victoria come up, wanted to show her the new place and her room and approximately 700 drawings she'd made. Victoria glanced at Daniel, uncertain. Come up, he said, unless you have somewhere else to be. Nowhere else I'd rather be. In the apartment, Emma gave Victoria the grand tour, pointing out every detail that had changed since Victoria had last been around. The new couch, the bookshelf Daniel had built, Emma's collection of stuffed animals that had somehow tripled in size. And this is my room! Emma threw open the door. It's bigger than the old one, and I have a desk for homework now. And look, she pulled out a shoebox from under her bed. Inside were drawings, cards, little trinkets. I saved these for you in case you came back. Daddy said you probably wouldn't, but I kept them anyway. Victoria's hands trembled as she looked through the box. Birthday cards Emma had made, drawings of the 3 of them together. A badly spelled note that said, I miss you. Come back soon. Love, Emma. Oh, sweetheart, Victoria managed, her voice breaking. These are beautiful. Thank you for saving them. I knew you'd come back. I just knew it. Victoria pulled Emma into another hug, and Daniel had to look away, his own eyes burning. They ordered pizza for dinner, Emma's choice, and ate sitting on the living room floor like they used to. Emma talked Victoria's ear off about everything she'd missed, barely pausing to breathe between stories. Eventually, Emma started yawning, fighting sleep with the determination of a kid who didn't want to miss anything. All right, kiddo, Daniel said. Time for bed. But Victoria just got here. She'll be back, I promise. Right, Victoria? Absolutely. If you'll have me, I'd like to be around a lot more. Every day? Maybe not every day right away, but often. As much as you want. I want every day. Victoria smiled. Then we'll work our way up to that. Daniel carried a yawning Emma to her room, helped her brush her teeth, tucked her into bed. As he was leaving, she called out sleepily, Daddy? Yeah, baby? I'm glad Victoria's back. I love her. His throat felt tight. I know. I love her too. I know. You're bad at hiding it. He laughed softly. Get some sleep, smart girl. Back in the living room, Victoria was still sitting on the floor, looking at Emma's drawings. She really did miss you, Daniel said, sitting beside her. I can't believe she saved all this. For 6 months, just hoping. She's stubborn, gets it from me. She's wonderful. You've done an amazing job with her. We've had our rough patches. Still do, but yeah, she's pretty great. Victoria set down the drawings, turning to face him. Thank you for this. for letting me back in, for giving me the chance to be part of her life again. You were always part of her life. We just took a detour, a 6-month detour. But we found our way back. She leaned into him, and he wrapped an arm around her. They sat like that for a while, comfortable in the silence. I sent the email to New York today, Victoria said eventually. Told them I'm declining the position. How do you feel about it? Terrified, relieved, excited, all of it at once. She looked at him. I'm really doing this, starting my own firm, building something from scratch. You're going to be incredible. You keep saying that because I keep meaning it. She smiled, then kissed him softly. Stay with me tonight? Emma's asleep down the hall. I know, I just meant stay. Don't go home. We can keep our clothes on and be completely appropriate. I just want to fall asleep next to you in a bed that's actually yours, in a place that's actually yours, somewhere that feels real. This is real. I know, but I want to feel it. Want to wake up here tomorrow and have coffee in your kitchen and see Emma before school and just be part of this, if that's okay. Daniel thought about all the reasons to say no, about taking things slow and being careful and not rushing into cohabitation before they'd even been officially dating for a week. Then he thought about Victoria leaving tonight, about sleeping alone when he could sleep beside her, about wasting any more time being cautious with something he already knew he wanted. Yeah, he said, stay. They cleaned up from dinner together, moving around the kitchen with an easy synchronization that felt natural. Victoria washed while Daniel dried, and it was so domestic and simple and perfect that it made his chest ache. In his bedroom, Victoria borrowed a t-shirt and they got ready for bed like they'd done it 1,000 times. And when they finally lay down together, Daniel felt something click into place. This was what home felt like. Not just a place, but a person. People. Emma asleep down the hall and Victoria beside him, and the promise of tomorrow stretching out ahead of them. Daniel? Victoria whispered in the darkness. Yeah? I'm happy. Right now, in this moment, I'm completely happy. Me too. I know we still have things to figure out. My family's going to be a nightmare about me leaving Blake Industries. And we need to talk about logistics and schedules and all the boring stuff. But right now, none of that matters. No, it doesn't. She turned to face him. I spent 6 months thinking I'd lost this forever, thinking I'd messed up so badly that there was no coming back. And I was so angry at you for not listening, but I was more angry at myself for not fighting harder to make you hear me. We both messed up. Yeah, but we fixed it. That's what matters. They fell asleep holding hands, and Daniel dreamed of a future that looked nothing like his careful plans and everything like what he'd stopped letting himself hope for. 3 months later, Victoria's consulting firm was officially launched. She'd rented a small office downtown, hired 2 associates, and was already fielding more clients than she could handle. Her family had reacted exactly as predicted. Her father was furious, her brother was concerned, her mother was quietly supportive in that way that drove her father even crazier. But Victoria stood her ground. This was hers. She was building something that wasn't tied to the Blake name or her family's expectations, something she could be proud of on her own terms. Daniel watched her thrive and felt proud in a way that had nothing to do with ownership or possession and everything to do with witnessing someone he loved become fully themselves. Emma had adjusted to Victoria's presence with the easy acceptance of childhood. Within a month, Victoria was coming over most nights. Within 2 months, she had a drawer at Daniel's apartment and a toothbrush in the bathroom. Within 3 months, Emma was asking when Victoria was going to officially move in. They hadn't rushed it, took their time, talked through the hard stuff when it came up. And it did come up. They had fights about schedules and priorities and the fact that Victoria still sometimes made decisions without consulting him. But they talked it through, didn't let silence fester, didn't assume the worst. They learned each other again. The new versions they'd become in 6 months apart, and they learned to build something together that was stronger for having been broken and repaired. 6 months after Seattle, Daniel woke up on a Sunday morning to find Victoria already awake, sitting up in bed with her laptop. "Working already," he mumbled. "Just checking emails. Go back to sleep." He pulled her back down instead, laptop be damned. She laughed and let him, curling into his side. Emma's going to wake up soon and demand pancakes, she said. Let her, we have time. Do we? Because I was thinking. Uh-oh. That tone means you've been planning something. Not planning, just thinking. She propped herself up on one elbow, looking at him. My lease is up next month. Okay? And I've been spending most nights here anyway. Okay. And Emma asked me again yesterday when I'm moving in. Daniel's heart started beating faster. What did you tell her? I told her I needed to talk to her dad first, make sure he was okay with it. And are you asking if I'm okay with it? I'm asking if you want me to move in, officially. Not just staying over most nights, but actually living here, combining our lives in a real committed way. Daniel looked at her, hair messy from sleep, wearing one of his old t-shirts, completely comfortable in his bed and his life. Thought about the past 6 months, the way she'd shown up for Emma, for him, for them, the way she'd fought through the hard conversations instead of running, the way she'd chosen them over New York, over her family's expectations, over the easy path. Yeah, he said, I want that. I want you here, permanently, officially, all of it. Victoria's face broke into a brilliant smile. Yeah? Yeah, move in with us. Be part of this family for real. She kissed him, long and deep and certain. When they pulled apart, her eyes were bright. I love you, she said. I love you and Emma and this life we're building. I love that it's messy and complicated and nothing like what I thought I wanted. I love that we screwed it up and fixed it and we're stronger for it. I love you too, and I love that you're terrible at pancakes and Emma still makes you try every Sunday. And I love that you leave your coffee cups everywhere and you steal my t-shirts and you argue with me about everything. I don't argue about everything. You're literally arguing right now. She laughed. Okay, fair point. Emma's voice floated from her room. Are you guys awake? Can we have pancakes? Is Victoria here? She's here, Daniel called back. She's always here. Emma appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas, grinning. Good, because I want the chocolate chip kind, and Daddy always forgets the chocolate chips. I do not forget. I'm just judicious about chocolate for breakfast. That's a fancy way of saying you forget. Victoria laughed, climbing out of bed. Come on, let's go make pancakes with lots of chocolate chips. Your dad can supervise and pretend he's being healthy. I'm standing right here. We know, Daddy. We just don't care. They headed to the kitchen together, Daniel and Victoria and Emma, and he watched them argue about chocolate chip quantities and listened to Emma's elaborate story about something that happened at school and felt something settle deep in his chest. This was it. This was what mattered, not the job titles or the money or the pride that had almost cost him everything. Just this, family and love and the choice to show up every day even when it was hard. Later that morning, after pancakes and cleanup and Emma running off to build something elaborate with Legos, Victoria and Daniel stood in the kitchen drinking terrible coffee. I'm really moving in, she said, like she was testing the words. You're really moving in. Your apartment's going to be very crowded with all my stuff. Then maybe we should start looking for something bigger. 3 bedrooms, office space for your work, closer to Emma's school. You've thought about this. I've thought about everything when it comes to you. She set down her coffee, moving to stand in front of him. A year ago, I thought I'd lost you forever. 6 months ago, I thought maybe we had a chance, but I was too scared to really believe it. And now you're talking about moving in together and finding a bigger place and building a whole life. Is it too much? No, it's perfect. It's everything I didn't let myself want because I was too busy protecting myself from getting hurt. And now? Now I'm done protecting myself. I'm all in. With you, with Emma, with whatever comes next. Daniel pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Whatever comes next, we handle it together. Together, she agreed. Emma ran back into the kitchen, dragging Victoria to see her Lego creation. Daniel followed, watching the 2 most important people in his life argue about structural integrity and whether dinosaurs would really live in a castle. His phone buzzed, a text from his mom. Lunch next Sunday? Haven't seen you all in weeks. He typed back. Sounds good. Victoria's officially moving in. Thought you should know. The response came immediately. Finally, I'll make extra food. We're celebrating. Daniel smiled, pocketing his phone. Celebrating. Yeah, that felt right. Because this, right here, right now, with terrible coffee and elaborate Lego structures and the sound of Victoria's laugh mixing with Emma's, this was worth celebrating. Not because it was perfect. It wasn't. They'd stumble, make mistakes, have hard days where nothing went right, and they'd wonder if they were doing any of it correctly. But they'd chosen each other, kept choosing each other through the mess and the fights and the fear and the uncertainty. And in the end, maybe that's all love really was. Not some grand romantic gesture or perfect moment, just the daily choice to show up, to listen, to try, to forgive, to build something together even when it was hard. Daniel watched Victoria help Emma add another tower to her creation, their heads bent together in concentration, and thought about that question she'd asked in the darkness 6 months ago. Do you still hate me? No, he'd never hated her. He'd been scared and hurt and too proud to ask the right questions. But hate? Never that. What he felt now was so far from hate, it was almost laughable. Love, yes. But more than that, partnership, family, home, the kind of love that survived mistakes and distance and 6 months of silence, the kind that came back stronger for having been tested, the kind worth fighting for. Daddy, Emma called. Come help us. This tower keeps falling. Because you're not using the right pieces, Victoria argued. I am too. You're really not. Daniel crossed to them, kneeling beside the Lego chaos, and joined the debate about architectural integrity. And later, when Emma was in bed and he and Victoria were curled up on the couch, he thought about how close he'd come to missing this, how easily pride and fear could have kept them apart forever. What are you thinking about? Victoria asked. How lucky I am that we ended up at the same conference, that you asked me that question, that I finally listened. I'm lucky, too, that you gave me another chance, that you let me back into Emma's life, that you chose to trust me again. We're both lucky then. Yeah, we really are. They sat there in comfortable silence, and Daniel thought about the future stretching out ahead of them, moving in together, finding a new place and navigating Victoria's complicated family and his demanding schedule and Emma's growing independence. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But it would be theirs, built on honesty and forgiveness and the daily choice to keep showing up. And that was everything. Outside, Seattle rain had given way to Chicago snow, winter settling in for the long haul. But inside, with Victoria warm beside him and Emma asleep down the hall, Daniel felt nothing but grateful for second chances, for hard conversations, for the courage to try again, for love that survived the worst and came back stronger, for finding his way home.